which is being held in accordance with the Open Public Hearings Act of 1973, also known as the Sunshine Law. In accordance with the New Jersey Public Laws of 1975, Chapter 231, Section 5, adequate notice of this hearing has been provided by notifying the Newark Star-Ledger and the Jersey Journal. Also, the schedule of regular meetings of the Newark Landmarks and Historical Preservation Commission has been posted on the bulletin board in the basement at City Hall and filed in the office of the city clerk. Excuse me. In addition to adequate notice under the Open Public Meetings Act, electronic notice of this remote public meeting is as permitted under the NJSA 10493 was placed on the City of Newark's website. Members of the public can make public comments by audio or by audio and video as permitted by Zoom electronic communication platform. Now, while in this Zoom meeting, press on raise hand on the bottom left corner of the computer screen or mobile device. Raise hand allows participants to notify the host that they would like to speak without interrupting them. If you're calling in, press *9 on your telephone to raise your hand. Tonight's meeting will be limited to business items listed on the agenda. Requests to schedule items for future meetings should be submitted to the Commission, care of Division of City Planning, Newark City Hall, 920 Broad Street, Room 112, Newark, New Jersey, 07102. Madam Secretary, could we have a call to order?
Sure. Commissioner Combs-Hollis?
See her.
Yeah, but she's on mute. Okay, I'll come back. Commissioner Gross-Gloss?
Here.
Commissioner John Paul?
Here.
Commissioner Roger Smith, because I know we have two Smiths.
Here.
Commissioner Caldwell Epps?
Here.
Commissioner Forsyth?
Here.
Commissioner O'Toole?
Here.
Commissioner Zhang?
Here.
Commissioner Nance?
Here.
Commissioner Combs-Hollis?
I'm here.
Chair Smith?
Here. Madam Secretary, could we get a motion to approve of the minutes from December 3rd, 2025? Can I get someone to make a motion to approve the
So
minutes?
moved. Commissioner Caldwell Epps.
Do we have a second?
Second.
That was Commissioner Roger Smith.
Commissioner
Actually,
Smith, you didn't attend the last hearing, so
attend
you
the
cannot
meeting, so
make
you
a
can't
vote on it.
vote.
Oh, okay.
Commissioner O'Toole, I second.
You? Motion made by Commissioner Caldwell Epps, seconded by Commissioner O'Toole to adopt the minutes of December 3rd of 2025. Commissioner Gross-Gloss?
Yes. Well,
Commissioner John Paul?
Yes.
Commissioner Zhang?
yes.
Commissioner Nance?
Yes.
Commissioner Caldwell Epps?
Yes.
Commissioner Combs-Hollis?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Toole?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Motion to adopt the minutes of December 3rd.
Madam Secretary, do we have any reports of enforcement actions in the historical district?
No, Commissioner.
Any communications?
No, Commissioner.
Okay, before we officially open the meeting, I have a few things I want to say before we get into this meeting. Once again, good evening and Happy New Year to everyone. As the chairperson of Landmarks and Historical Preservation in Native Newark, I want to extend a warm welcome to each of you. Thank you for being here today as we gather to honor the rich tapestry of the city's history while also embracing the opportunities that progress and growth brings. Our mission as commissioners, or as this commission, is to preserve and protect the historical landmarks that tell the story of the community, stories that reflect the shared heritage, culture, and identity. These landmarks are not just buildings. They are physical embodiments of our past, serving as a bridge between generations and remember of the values that we have that shaped us. However, we also recognize that our city is evolving. With growth comes the responsibility to ensure that development is thoughtful and sustainable, balancing the need for modern infrastructure with the preservation of our historical character. It is our duty to engage in constructive dialogue that fosters collaboration between preservation efforts and new developments. Today, we're here to let us focus on finding a delicate balance. Let's explore innovative ways to integrate the historical sites into the fabric of our thriving modern city, the city we all love, the city of Newark, with respect and honor for the past, present, and the future. Note, by working together, we can create a vibrant community that honors its past by looking forward to a promising future. I want to thank you all for your commitment as commissioners to this vital work, and I look forward to our discussions today to the impactful decisions we can make together. I have a few more things I need to say. For the record, I worked at NJPAC 27 years ago as a programming assistant, not an executive. It was a short stint, and surely the statute of limitations have passed. Number two, since our last meeting, all the commissioners were invited to do a thorough guided tour of the site with appropriate professionals to show and explain some of the new challenges that have arisen. 5 out of 10 of the commissioners attended. Number three, in order to bring levity to this discussion, all commissioners, whether you are voting or you are reclusing yourself, please lean in because we need to have everyone's voice heard. So that being said, Madam Secretary and fellow commissioners, we are untabling the application H25171. Madam Secretary, please invite the applicants in for further discussion.
Sure.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, everybody.
Oh, we got Tim here also.
Evening.
Good evening. Is that it for the team who will be continuing the conversation this evening?
Yes, we do also have our environmental expert, Mark Konstantinos, available if there's any additional question following the site visit by the Commissioners.
So maybe you should invite him.
I'm sorry, Commissioner. Is Junius Williams joining us?
Would you like me to, would you like me to bring that person in?
If
Yes.
you would, please. Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
And I
Thank you.
think you should bring also the
Mark
Professional.
Constantino?
yes, bring him in also.
So while we're doing that, thank you for having us back, Commissioners. My name's Lisa John Bassa with the law firm Chiesa, Shahinian, and Jantamasi for the record. As the Commissioners are aware, the applicant was previously before you in December of 2025 with its amended application for demolition of a greater portion of 24 Rector Street than what was approved in 2022. At that meeting, the applicant presented its affirmative case in its totality, and it discussed the proposed demolition and retention of the most significant portion of the facade, the 3-story portion of the facade. It discussed the health and safety risks to maintaining a greater portion of the building than it's being proposed to be demolished now, and that was presented by expert testimony. And lastly, we also presented Junius Williams, who discussed the committee that has been formed in collaboration with NJPAC in a way to create an open public park on the property that would commemorate the 1967 National Black Power Conference. At the conclusion of the meeting, the board decided to table until there was an opportunity to conduct site tours, as was just stated by the chairman. Site tours were made available and have now concluded. So we do have everybody back here for additional questioning, but before we close our case entirely, John Schreiber, the president and CEO of NJPAC, would like to make a few statements on the application and some clarifications as well. And I'll take it as at your pleasure, Mr. Chair, of what order you would like to do that in.
Let Mr. Shriver speak.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, commissioners. And thanks, Lisa. I want to first say that I am very grateful to all you commissioners for this opportunity to share our thinking. I want to thank the commission for the time and attention that it's dedicated to this proposal and for making the time to tour the building during the busy holiday season in order for our application process to proceed tonight. Before we conclude, I want to reiterate and clarify some key points from NJPAC's perspective. First and foremost, as you all, I believe, know, NJPAC is a nonprofit organization. As Newark's anchor cultural institution, its mission is to be America's foremost urban presenter of arts and entertainment, a creative and effective leader in arts education for children, a convener of useful and enlightening civic events, and a catalyst for economic development here in our hometown. To deliver on all of these elements of its mission, NJPAC has embarked on a project to add to the development of the Arts and Education District in the downtown, and 24 Rector Street is part of this endeavor. NJPAC received approval in 2022 to advance its master plan, which will not only create new housing, including 75 units of affordable housing, but as importantly, a new 58,000 square foot education and community center, the Cooperman Center. The Cooperman Center will enable NJPAC to offer free programming to all members of our Newark community, at least 5 days a week, everyone from mothers and babies to older adults, in a state-of-the-art learning facility that will include a children's arts reading room, a dozen smart classrooms, professional-grade rehearsal studios where local artists will receive space grants to create new works, a 170-seat theater lab where community performances can occur and where our youngsters can learn about careers in the entertainment industry. Not only will this facility take all the arts education and career development work the Arts Center has for decades offered at 24 Rector and transplant it into a location right on Center Street opposite NJPAC's theaters, but it's purpose-built to offer Newark's young people the best possible education in the arts and shine a light on this work and on the efforts of many Newark artists and community groups. We believe that the Cooperman Center is a facility that our community needs and that it deserves. And this $70 million project is part and parcel of the $335 million master planned redevelopment of NJPAC's campus that will open to the public in the summer of 2027. However, to be clear, the redevelopment project is only feasible due to the Aspire tax credits awarded to NJPAC by the state via its Economic Development Authority. This program has specific deadlines for completion of construction, which is why we are so eager for this process to continue this evening. I want to affirm, so that it is not misconstrued, that NJPAC was on schedule to commence remediation and partial demolition of 24 Rector Street, of that building, in accordance with the Commission's 2022 approval and Aspire project timeline. NJPAC could not, however, perform environmental investigation and remedial testing of the building until it was vacated this past August. NJPAC conducted the testing in August. Prior to that time, 24 Rector was occupied not only by many NJPAC team members, but by children attending our summer camps. We were not willing to endanger our staff and students by conducting the testing while they were using the building, nor did we want to cancel the summer programs that the families in our community rely on. Unfortunately, Through this testing, we discovered an unexpected amount of asbestos, which completely halted the approved demolition of portions of the 24 Rector Street building. NJPAC then marshaled all its resources to address this issue, and after assessing various options, we ultimately concluded that the only feasible way to complete the project within its approved timeline was to remove more of the structure of 24 Rector Street than originally planned. Asbestos remediation on this scale would imperil all the project's financing and the funding received under the Aspire Award. In short, if we are unable to meet the construction timelines, our funding for the entire project will be put at risk, and NJPAC, as its sponsor, would be placed in grave financial circumstances. And the full remediation of 24 Rector would make it impossible to meet these timelines. If we attempt it, we put the entire Artside project into jeopardy. From our perspective, the only way to move this project along on schedule is to demolish a larger portion of the building. In arriving at this difficult decision, it was paramount to NJPAC that the Black Power Conference of 1967, in which 24 Rector Street played a role, be honored in a meaningful way. To that end, we enlisted the help of Junius Williams, Newark's official city historian, who was himself an attendee of the 1967 Black Power Conference. Under Junius's direction, a committee has been formed to design a new urban park space on the site of 24 Rector that will forever commemorate the events that occurred in the building. In our view, creating a park space to commemorate the 1967 Black Power Conference is more impactful and will reach a larger audience than preserving the previously approved portion of 24 Rector as a small limited-use space that would not be useful either for education or performance purposes. Excuse me, I'm recovering from a cold. I bet many of you are too. Pardon me for 1 second. Thanks. In our opinion, the current proposal is a win-win. There is an opportunity to preserve the most iconic portion of the building itself, as well as the ability to create a new urban park space for the city's residents and visitors alike that will serve as a memorial to the 1967 conference and will educate the public about the vital role Newark played in the Black Power movement. It will exist in perpetuity and significantly amplify the attention paid to Newark's role in this historic event. I also want to reconfirm to the Commission the commitments NJPAC has made to ensure the conference and its legacy will forever be remembered. NJPAC proposes to place a plaque on the building facade that will list participants in the conference. NJPAC will also record a deed restriction on the property, ensuring that the park space will be forever maintained as a public park. Under Junius's leadership, NJPAC will produce a conference celebrating the legacy of the 1967 Black Power Conference, at which scholars, historians, and community members will, through lectures, conversations, and film screenings, examine the history of the Black Power movement in America and the prominence of Newark's role in that history. And upon the approval of the Commission, NJPAC will commence demolition and begin preliminary park design. We will return to the Commission with design plans for its feedback and eventual approval. I genuinely believe this plan represents the best possible outcome for the city, for our community, for the students and community groups that we serve, and for advancing the understanding of the role Newark played in a significant moment in our nation's history. I thank you for your attention. I conclude my remarks. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Schreiber. Is there anyone else on your team that wants to say anything prior to me opening up from questions from our commissioners?
No, Mr. Chair.
Commissioners, those who many of us went through inspection and just heard the continued conversation of what the commitment is from NJPAC. Anyone have any questions or want to add anything to this presentation? Commissioners?
Yes, I'd like to ask a few questions of Mr.
Commissioner
Schreiber so the first Commissioner Zhang. Yes, this is Commissioner Zhang. The first question I had is you said that to deny this demolition application would throw the funding into jeopardy. I'm curious, could you describe to the Commission what steps you tried to take to change the project scope and request an extension from the NJEDA?
I'm going to defer to Tim Lazar, who's our Senior Vice President of Real Estate and Capital Projects, who's been leading this effort.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, the challenge behind this project and the timing, as we went over in the tour, is that these improvements are all interrelated. And in order to qualify for the tax credits, in order to certify for the tax credits, every portion of the project has to be completed with a certificate of completion or certificate of occupancy issued in order to provide it to the state. The state then issues a tax credit. There's timing behind all of those things. There's extraordinary timing behind all those things, and they're all interrelated. And the carefully orchestrated financing structure requires that these tax credits get sold. Those tax credits, when they get sold, get used to pay debt service on the loans that were generated to pay for the project. All of those things are reliant on a schedule. And what we did do is we investigated an alternative method of abatement to accelerate the process called a appeal method, which would have been able to be done in a much quicker time frame than the proposed or the required remediation that is going. So that was one of the steps we took to try to accelerate the redevelopment process. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it starts to answer some of my questions. So I mean, what I am curious is during our site visit, you said to us that the current front half of the cathedral house, even if it has asbestos behind sections of the wall, is still occupiable. So I'm curious, did your team consider the possibility of continuing to use the front half of the building or the entirety of the building, either for school or for some other temporary interim use for the foreseeable future? Because to my mind, from my understanding of the site visit, the asbestos, possible presence of asbestos only becomes an issue during the demolition or during the entire remediation of the project. So to fit within the NJEDA timelines, is it possible to either not use the structure or to either remediate the structure partly or to continue using the structure as a school with the asbestos safely encapsulated?
So yes, thank you. So we did begin to explore that, and I would say that the challenge of reusing the existing space is that the existing space would require renovations itself. So the back half of the building, for instance, has the elevators in it and has the bathrooms in it. So in order to reoccupy the front half of the building, substantial work would have had to undertake in order to make the building rehabilitated and reoccupiable. So the challenge behind, and you're absolutely right, encapsulated asbestos is not a risk for health. And that's how, luckily, we've been able to occupy the building all of these years, because everything you saw had been properly encapsulated, and asbestos that was stuck to the brick obviously was not going to be friable. But once you started to do all the renovation work, that would be required to get a certificate of occupancy for the remainder portion of the building, you then wind up having disturbing that asbestos, creating a unhabitable and a very challenged environment. And that doesn't go for just the reoccupied portion. Anytime you did work in the future, if you had asbestos, you would have to continue to do those sorts of remedial activities every time you did work. So our inclination would be that if we were going to reoccupy that portion of the building, we would want to abate the entire portion once you started to do the construction, because the whole building has been exposed at that point anyway.
Commissioner Zhang, are you still here? You went off camera. So while we wait for him to come back, is there any other commissioners? Does anybody else have any questions or comments they want to make until he comes back? Commissioners?
Commissioner
questions?
Smith here.
Yeah.
I could make a couple statements. Certainly the NJPAC has had an incredible influence on the progress that we've made in Newark, and the current projects underway, Cooperman Center, and the housing that's happening now is really going to create an opportunity for an epicenter of culture in the center of downtown. And it seems to me the work that's been done, I work in this industry and completely understand the hurdles of dealing with asbestos remediation. It's a huge issue. I also understand the Aspire program and the kind of conditions under which that has to be moved forward. So those current constraints are real, and certainly understand that. And the other thing I would say is that the fact that you kind of pivoted once discovering these issues in a way that supports the preservation of the primary facade of the building, which has significance in many ways, combined with the fact that you were going to be developing under the guidance of Junius Williams, which is going to be amazing, to preserve the site as a historic marker for the incredible history of the Black Power movement and beyond the movement, to the significant role that Newark has played in the history of progress in this regard, I think is significant. And it's not without precedent to adjust and pivot. But the way that you've done it seems to me very sensitive, and it seems to me very, very important. And not only that, the idea of preserving the park site in perpetuity and having programming around that site gives it even more significance. So I just have to say I appreciate your approach to this. We understand from your comments that this wasn't the original intent. But these are the things that we have to address as we move these things forward. So, yeah, I appreciate all that you've done so far.
This is Commissioner Zhang again. Thank you, Commissioner Roger Smith, for your comments. I'm going to say here that I really don't like this project for a lot of reasons. There is extensive documentation from 2022 about the feasibility of preserving this site. And the contamination of asbestos. I'm aware that asbestos is commonly found in these older structures. It's a common mitigating condition. And I think that it is possible to fully remediate the structure and use within the time frame. Currently, the applicant is saying that they want to fully remediate the front half of the structure before the 2027 deadline of the NJEDA. I think at the same time, the applicant could consider continuing to use the Cathedral House as a school, as they did for the past 30 years. Or they consider some form of mothballing the structure, that is securing the structure with insulation over the roof and insulation over the windows until such time that a future use for it can be found. I also am skeptical about the degree of asbestos contamination in the structure. During the site visit, we saw one section at the rear half of the structure that had a section of the wall measuring about 6 by 10 feet that had the plaster removed to reveal what was alleged to be asbestos beneath it, but we weren't shown at that time any sections in the front half of the building where there is allegedly asbestos contamination. The engineer's report, page and a half, about 800 words or so, give or take. And so that's the evidence presented in support of the demolition of the structure. In contrast, the 2022 report included an extensive history of the structure. It included a lot of photos of the structure, and it included the site plan. I'm glad that since the previous application, during the previous application I think in December, the applicant said that it wouldn't be possible to separate the front and back half of the buildings. Of course, the 2022 plan demonstrates the feasibility of separating the front and back half. And so the question is primarily about, at this point, about the asbestos contamination and whether or not it's possible to remediate asbestos. To my mind, the question is not whether or not it's possible to remediate asbestos. It is possible. The question is whether or not it's possible within the timeline set forth by the applicant or within the applicant's goals to fully renovate the structure by 2027. So I think that a change in project scope can help to preserve the structure. And then furthermore, as it relates to that question of the best way to remember that history, I would really solidly disagree that the park or the monument is a better way to remember that history than the structure itself. A structure is living. Happened, it's so powerful to touch the same doors and to see the same windows that these people experienced 100 years ago. And a park between two towers that might have indirect sunlight, really, to my mind, is no substitute for that kind of living history. There's also the living history of this, if this building were converted to a social justice center or a Black Power center or an arts center or studio lofts. Behind Carnegie Hall in New York City, there are studio lofts used for decades by artists recently converted to offices. And could be really powerful if behind NJPAC's campus, there are artist lofts in a building like Cathedral House. To my mind, what better way to remember the history of activism and the history of Black Power in Newark than to provide working spaces for artists in this kind of a loft building. And walking through Cathedral House, seeing the height of the ceilings and seeing the large former congregation and chapel area. It's really a fabulous area for full wall-size art installations and year-round exhibits, and so much we could do with the space. And so to have a park there is really the only substitute for when it's not possible to preserve the structure, or when that that history has been erased. And I don't think that the park can ever
Looks as though he's gone.
Yeah, so when he comes, let's take a pause from Commissioner Zhang. Commissioner Epps, I know that you had your hand raised,
Yeah.
and when he comes back, he'll have his turn to finish what he has to
Well,
say.
actually, part of what I want to say really reflects, I cannot speak to the asbestos. I did not go on the tour with all of you, but I would think since this month has gone by, I've taken my car to Rector Street. I've parked it, I've sat and I've watched the activity that goes on over there and thought about this very seriously. Most of you know I'm a cultural historian, so history means a lot to me. Taking down buildings, I don't take that lightly, and I'm even a little surprised at the position that I'm going to take. However, in my sittings on Rector Street, I've noticed the density of that's occurred around here, the building density that's occurred around here, and the number of families that have moved into the area with all of the high rises, and that there is not any place for children and families to really relax and play. We've really taken up a lot of open space in this territory. So I actually am proposing something even a little bit different. and that is retaining that part of the building that NJPAC has said that it will retain, but doing something truly much more intricate and spectacular with the open space that's there. I did visit a playground in Silver Springs, Maryland, where my son lives, that had musical instruments in the playground, exaggerated sizes of musical instruments that children could actually play. Remember the piano from the movie Big that children could play on? Anyway, so the playground was filled with things like that. So I'm suggesting that we consider something like that to go along with the arts, but also to have probably an uncomfortable number of markings or plaques that tell the story of that land, not just of the Black Power Conference that was there in 1967, which I'm very well aware of, but of the history of that church in general. And some of you know, I did the project on Cujo Benquante, the history of that church in the cause for freedom throughout these past 250 years, I think is part of the story that must be told there, in addition to the Black Power Conference. So I'm offering 3 other additions to the open space, which I think will communicate the history of that plot of land and will reach more people than that building could possibly reach, especially with your idea of, I don't remember what you called it, but saying that nothing else could be built on this space for X number of years. But with the markings, with the possible introduction of music and playing musical instruments to children, this is a wonderful outdoor educational opportunity for families, not just adults, right? Not just children, but for families in general of all ages. So I'm stretching what NJPAC has proposed to do. And I find myself in the awkward position, which I never thought I'd do this when I was doing my studies in American Studies, calling for or voting on the side of partial demolition of the building.
Thank you, Commissioner
Also,
Epps.
I wanted to mention, and I think I mentioned this to a few of you, there is a Black Heritage Trail, which comes with all sorts of things, plaques and things like that, which I think that this land, without a doubt, would qualify to be on that Black Heritage Trail, which would bring even more visitors to the site if it were part of that project. Some of you know Noelle Williams. She works with the New Jersey Historical Commission. She is in charge of that. It requires all sorts of documentation, which I don't think you would have any difficulty fulfilling. One of that is primary source material, and you have plenty of that, which would, again, bring even more people to the site, would give the site greater recognition than it would ever have now as the building.
Thank you, Commissioner Epps. Do we have any more questions for our applicant or comments? Yes, Commissioner Nance.
Commissioner Nance, can you clarify again if you've discussed with the EDA on an extension on your Aspire credit regarding everything that's come up regarding the asbestos abatement and the changes that it would cause to the schedule?
We have not, sorry, Commissioner, thank you, Chairman. We have not asked for a extension, and it's not even as much about an extension, but every year that goes by that you don't certify, you push back a year's worth of tax credits. So there's a certification process which happens after the project is complete, meaning all phases of it have been complete. And delays in that process, that's an annual cycle. So you miss an entire year if you don't certify. So our goal is to not miss the year we're planning on hitting, because those tax credits are what are being sold in order to pay for our loan servicing payments. So we haven't approached the topic. We will have to go to the EDA and let them know that one of the buildings that we were going to renovate and reoccupy is going to be demolished. That will be an amendment, or most likely administrative amendment But we weren't going to do that prior to getting the approval from the town, because that you need to have this approval first.
Commissioner Nance?
Yes, Commissioner Nance. So you just mentioned that amendments can be made with the EDA. So wouldn't it be possible for you to get an amendment in regards to this schedule?
Yes,
Can I try to explain this perhaps?
Thank you.
So as it was explained to me by Tim, because I'm not as versed as him in this, but I need to try to understand this on, a layman's terms that's not versed in it. So as it was explained to me is that there's like Tim said, there's a yearly certification that comes around only once a year. So you can't ask for an extension of 4 months. It has to be a full year. And what happens is they're using the monies that come at the end of the year to pay for, I'll just say, the work that has occurred to date. In the event that they don't get those funds, then we have problems. The job starts to shut down because the contractors are not getting paid. Liens go onto the property, et cetera, et cetera. It causes a domino effect throughout the entire project. So that's why it's not as simple of just saying, hey, can we get 4 additional months to do what we need to do? Because it truly jeopardizes the entire project. It was like very, very thoughtfully planned out, the financing aspects of all this and the construction schedule. I hope that helps to try to understand.
It does help, but for the public, I think it would be helpful to clarify. I read about some of the estimated costs, and we need, like, the public would need to know how it would really affect the impact on the project, and why the demolition of this building is going to affect your project. Yeah.
So to say it again, if the project is completed off its schedule, meaning that it's delayed, the tax credits that are supposed to show up in a particular year don't show up, and the loan payments which are obligated to be made don't get made, and then there's a default under the loan agreements, and then when there's a default under the loan agreements, all of the kind of structural interrelation becomes a reality, and the lawsuits start, and all of the kind of financial obligations become due and payable, right? If we can't get the approval to do the demolition, it puts the schedule of the completion of the project in peril, which creates a domino effect on all of the various loans that are outstanding in order to finish the project. And once the lenders know that, they then stop lending money for the project, because then they don't want to have more loans that are not going to be paid back. Does that kind of give you the answer that you make sense?
Yeah, there's clarifications about the economic hardship that it would cause for NJPAC that need to be made in order to move forward with this demolition, because otherwise it's really not within the standards for demolition to demolish this building.
Okay, what the peril that all of the financial obligations are reliant on, I think is a fairly significant problem.
Commissioner Nance, any additional questions? Are you fine?
No, I'm fine for now. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Forsythe, I see your hand is up.
Yes. Hi. As you guys know, I'm a horticulturist, so I really approve the establishment of a park, and I believe through my experience at Branchbrook Park that parks are a very democratic space and allow for everyone to participate And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that I live across the street from the Harriet Tubman Memorial, and I've learned so much from that. I mean, that's a really living, moving memorial. That being said, I think that this one small open space is very, very important in Newark, and really needs to be designed properly. And as I had mentioned before, in terms of design review, there's a big heavy lift, and you need to, I need to encourage that that this is designed as well. And I like the fact that Junius Williams is involved, because it provides a kind of gravitas and history to this whole process. But that's it.
This is Commissioner Zhang. I mean, I appreciate the value of a park, but I think that this commission shouldn't see it as an either-or kind of proposition. Either it's a building or it's a park. I'm seeing from NJPAC's campus plan, their campus is over 10 acres. Immediately behind the back proposed demolition, the back half of Cathedral House proposed for demolition, there are 10 or 15 parking spots. So I don't see why it's possible to have a park, a small pocket park of 2,000 or 3,000 square feet in addition to the preservation of Cathedral House. I look across the landscape of downtown Newark, and there's 300 or 400 or more acres of surface parking already. So I don't think that this land is at a premium, and I appreciate the value of a park, but I don't see the park as a full replacement for the house. For Cathedral House, I think we should instead see the park as an addition to the Cathedral House. That how great is it that Junius Williams is involved in park design and in commemorating the Black History site. But wouldn't it be possible to find the adjacent site or the site immediately behind it currently proposed for surface parking, or somewhere else on the campus immediately adjacent or 200 or 300 feet away to also build that park? This isn't New York City where this real estate value is at a premium. So I think that the park here is a distraction. And historically, this commission has considered the new construction applications in parallel to the demolition applications. That is, a demolition was tentatively approved pending the construction, pending the approval of the park that would replace it. But at this point, the commission is being asked to approve the demolition of a structure without any kind of plans for what will replace it. It's a vague kind of plan to look at the replacement plan for the park there, and it's a couple of trees that are sketches of trees and the silhouettes of trees, but they're not fleshed out as where the people will go, where the buildings will go, where the monument will go. The applicant has also said that they will have a permanent deed restriction on the building. But from Nicari Miller, Commissioner Miller, at the previous meeting, we learned that the 1993 agreement to preserve Cathedral House required of NJPAC to put a deed restriction on the structure, to which no deed restriction was placed on the structure. So, I mean, I'm concerned here not just about the credibility of the applicant, but about the credibility that this will even become a permanent park. Because we have several sites around NJPAC's campus that were removed, either partially or fully, with the current campus expansion. There was the arch of the former Military Park Hotel, which was removed with or without the approval of the commission. Whether or not that's a landmark is another matter. There was the landing monument, which is a nationally registered landmark, which was also removed without the approval of the commission. There was the Cathedral House, to which there should have been a deed restriction, to which there was never one applied over the 30 years that NJPAC owned it. And then there's, above all of that, there's the cemetery of the Trinity Church Burial Ground, for which NJPAC constructed a memorial, and which was removed. And I know it will be put back, but I think that there's a shortage of communication here from the applicant to gradually, to either not fully to communicate to the commission their full extent of their plans for the project, or to make promises that are later revolve or fall back or change. That we have a 2022 application that fully preserves the structure, and now we have an application a few months later to demolish it. So what I'm concerned about here is this gradual kind of chipping away of historic preservation, to come back every year or the next year to gradually remove all of the whole range of historical assets that were once beneath the campus of NJPAC. And here's an opportunity to do something really interesting by history. Here's an opportunity to provide artist studios and history studios and places for artists to exhibit their work, and a schoolhouse and a permanent memorial to remember Black history and Black spaces and Newark history. Instead, we're being presented with a monument in a park, which is great, but there needs to be so much more than that. And I feel that the Newark history community, and particularly the historic preservation community, is being shortchanged by this change in project scope. I struggle to believe that out of a $300 million project for this, that the applicant cannot work together $1.5 million or less to preserve the structure, to remediate it, or to revise the project scope to the extent necessary to preserve the structure. Either for, so I'm just disappointed in this. And I hope the majority of this commission will agree with me.
I just need to make a clarification for the record. It was just stated that another commissioner had made a statement that a deed restriction was required to be placed on this property based on a 1993 agreement. That's not accurate. A deed restriction was not required to be placed on the property. The building was required to be preserved as part of phase 1 of the project, which has been completed previously, but it didn't talk about the future use or anything of that nature. So I did just want to make that clarification, so it's
Thank you.
correct.
If I remember reading from the 1993 agreement, it said that, yeah, I think you're right. Yes, it did say that there is no deed restriction required, but if NJPAC transfers it to a third property, they will impose a deed restriction as to requirement of that transfer. So yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Zhang. Any additional questions or comments as relates to this applicant?
Yes,
I
Mr.
just,
Chair, this is Gonzalez. I think I heard initially that 5 commissioners visited the site. And I'd like
Yes.
to hear from the 5, get a little bit of feedback from those commissioners. Commissioner Zhang spoke, and I appreciate that, but I'd like to hear from the rest of the commissioners who visited the site, because one of the reasons why we adjourned the application was to give the commission the opportunity to visit the site and provide feedback. So I'd like to hear that.
Commissioner Jean-Paul?
Hey, everybody. Thank you all for your comments. I just had a few comments after listening, and I did do a site visit. But the first thing is, I just wanted to make a comment as a local director of a nonprofit. And Commissioner Nance, I think it was really great that you asked them to actually illustrate the financial repercussions of how this project could really cause damage to the larger project and the institution in the end if we do not approve the demolition. So the first thing is I just want to really, for all of us, both as commissioners and as audience members, to think about the larger work that NJPAC does and the damage that could be done if we don't approve demolition on this space. I also did do a site visit. And I really thank the entire NJPAC team for that experience and for walking us through the entire building and talking through all the ups and downs and the hurdles that you've been through the last couple of years. But the one thing in particular, I work in public art, and I stood in front of the portion of the building that will be retained, and it is impactful. And not only is it impactful, but as it stands right now, as a building that's been vacated, that's not in use, there's only limited access. History and preservation is about storytelling. You can't share that story right now. And so if you retain the portion of the building that is speaking the loudest, that gives the history of this space, and you open up space for access, I think Commissioner Epps gave some great ideas. Commissioner Roger Smith, I loved your response to the quick pivot and the thoughtful and the intention. I think, as the city continues to grow, we will see these types of things float onto the table, and not everybody will come with the quick pivot and the intention and gathering the local stakeholders and historians to really develop a plan that gives access to that history for long term. if a park is brought to that space, think about all the new and current residents of Newark that will have access to that history. And yes, Commissioner Zhang, I understand about walking into a space and seeing the doors and hearing, the history from the walls, but that is only at the expense of NJPAC's long-term impact. That's only at the expense at thinking about how it's going to amend their future. And so I would say one that I think it's really critical that we all think about the state of a nonprofit, the delicate financial situation of a nonprofit, the critical planning that's behind a nonprofit and their larger impact and how that might actually alter the future of not only this project, but the actual impact in the audiences that they reach at. And then the second thing is, again, I stood in front of that building. I saw what's going to be removed. I know that from, a person that works at public art, that thinks about audiences, that thinks about impact, I know that that is going to move people in a new way and offer an education around the history and preservation that will be really remarkable. So those are just some comments on my end.
I'm sorry. This meeting is so much for me. I mean, this commission is so routed through with conflicts of interest right here. We have NJPAC, which is so deeply embedded across all Newark institutions. I think Commissioner John Paul has a current arts commission with NJPAC, and then we have other members of the commission who collaborate with NJPAC on art installations. And I think we have Commissioner Smith that Gensler, and Gensler is the architect commissioned to design the architectural firm commissioned to design the new campus for NJPAC at Lionsgate Studios. And so, I just think here that this commission is being asked to approve a demolition that if it were coming from any other applicant, it would be thrown right out the door. But because it comes from NJPAC, it's held to a different standard, and maybe even in this case, a lower standard. I mean, I've done 4 or 5 site visits over the years, and I've seen the range of structures that this commission has approved historically for demolition, and all those structures had been abandoned for 15, 20, or 5 or more years. Here we have a structure that was only recently vacated as of last August, and we have the asbestos, which is not a disastrous condition, which is a mitigating condition on the structure, that the majority of pre-World War II structures have asbestos in them. And if I accept this logic or the precedent of this application, then we should also be demolishing half the other structures in historic districts. And I really thoroughly disagree that the park is the best way to remember this piece of history. I mean, my house or Gettysburg or a plantation house, yes, they're not accessible but between 24 hours a day. They're accessible because they're a museum space. But no one here is saying that a place without a museum is more accessible than a place with a museum. Yes, a museum and a building have open hours and have events inside. It can only be accessed during certain times of year, but they're meaningful spaces because they're curated spaces. And I don't see a park as being a curated space. A few years ago, we had the demolition of Plymouth House in Newark, and the replacement was a park, and it was just the footprint of the building. You could walk in the footprint, see where the outlines of the rooms were, and see a couple of pots. And then just last year, 2 years ago, L&M replaced the footprint of the Plymouth House with the building. I mean, there are so many historical assets in Newark. By my estimates of urban renewal, over half of the buildings in downtown Newark have been demolished over the past 50 years during the process of urban renewal. We talk about the 1967 Black Power riots and Black Power and the Newark Rebellion, and how UMDNJ displaced 20,000 people to build their campus. And we say that urban renewal is past us. And then we look at the landscape of Newark today, and I see gentrification doing to Black history in Newark today the same thing that urban renewal did to Black history 50 years ago, with different kinds of institutions that have different kinds of names. But 50 years ago, it's UMDNJ. Today, it might be NJPAC or other kinds of institutions that talk about all the community benefits of replacing a neighborhood, of replacing a historic structure with an institutional land use. And we have the same kind of processes of history unfolding with different kinds of actors with different kinds of names. And I'm just so not distressed, but saddened that the commission would even consider this kind of an application. We have a feasibility study from only a few months ago that preserves the structure, and we have the commission through and through with conflicts of interest. And I don't see how this can possibly pass. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner Zhang. Commissioner Grosskopf, you were on the visit. Commissioner Grosskopf,
Yes.
you're there with us? Would you like to add anything from your experience of being at the site visit?
Well, this is regarding the oh goodness. I at the beginning of the meeting, I was sort of half and half, and I was thinking that I was going to. That's what you're looking for now, right?
No, we just want to know what your experience was as relates to your site visit at NJPAC. I mean, not at the at Rector Street.
Well, I guess I can say that I was when I went into it, not very sure, but I didn't think I would vote for it. But I guess after the tour, I was very excited by the idea of hopefully having something like this in the city of Newark, and I think that it really felt good to do the change in mind or to come up with that opinion.
Thank you. Are there any more comments from the commissioners before? Anything else about Commissioner Epps? You have to come off. You have to come off mute.
I just want to, again, to underline the point that I was trying to make, is what I am asking for is a curated space, a curated outside space. That's exactly what I'm asking for this. Again, that not only tells the story of what happened in 1967, but what has happened concerning the church and what happened in 1967, because I think that there's a connection there throughout the years that the church has existed, and their history of in that particular area. But I'm also very concerned about the swallowing up of open space for families and for children. And I think that this is an educational opportunity to curate a space that will not only tell the story of the church and of that building, but of the city as well. And I was glad to hear the comment about Washington Park and the Harriet Tubman Monument, and the scores of people that I see that stop in that area, that truly listen to the stories that are being told and the work that's being done in that area as well. So this is not an eradication of history, but I think if NJPAC takes our suggestions, it's not an eradication of history. It's actually a more public telling of that history and a more public showing of that history that I'm advocating for.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Epps.
This is Commissioner Zhang again. I mean, I think what we're being asked to
Sorry.
consider new.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Hollis?
I apologize, but I think that our Commissioner Rebecca Jean Paul had her hand raised. And we just need to be a little bit more thoughtful and respectful as we go through the process of deliberating the application. If we can do that, it would really make my heart happy if we do that.
Thank you, Commissioner Hollis. Commissioner Jean Paul?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify one thing. This application is for demolition only. I noted some comments that Commissioner Zhang had about the underdeveloped plans for the park. There will be a second application, correct, for the plans for the park, of which this commission will approve.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I wanted to clarify.
Okay,
Thank you.
Commissioner Nance?
I believe Commissioner Zhang was before me.
Okay. Commissioner Zhang?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Zhang. Yes, the city's municipal land use law lays out the criteria under which the Landmarks Commission can approve demolition. And those criteria I just copied into the chat. So those criteria are the commission should approve the demolition only when the structure meets those 7 criteria. So those criteria talk about the structure's historical and aesthetic significance of Cathedral House as a building, as a work of art, talk about its use as the rectory of Trinity Church, talks about its importance to the city and to the history of Newark, the extent to which it is an old building or it's of unusual or uncommon design that has craftsmanship that's impossible to replicate today. And so I think that the commission should only approve demolition when it meets the criteria, the 7 criteria under the current version of the municipal land use law, that whether or not a park or the replacement structure is what we feel to be a better use of the space than the current structure is an argument, but it's not a relevant argument to the criteria under which we are allowed to approve demolition. And those criteria are primarily on the significance of the current structure and not of its replacement structure.
Thank you, Commissioner Zhang.
Furthermore, I'll also add is that when we have considered demolition applications, it was at the same time when there was 2 items on the agenda. There was an item firstly on the agenda of the demolition application, and then immediately afterwards, there was a vote on the new construction application. Here in this project, we're separating the demolition and the new construction application. So we're presented with demolition application with a schematic drawing of what will replace it, but nowhere near the presentation level replacement drawings that we've considered in the past, which leads me to feel that this demolition application is being held to a lower standard than all previous demolition applications. So if MJPAC is going to make that demolition application, then they should come before the commission with a complete application for what will replace it. I don't see why that exception is being made in this case.
Thank you, Commissioner Zhang. Commissioner Nance?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I also agree that it doesn't meet the 7 criteria that we have to follow for the standards for demolition. And then I also wanted to bring up that on the site tour, Tim mentioned that a major reason why they're also looking to demolish most of this building is because it does not work for the turning radius of their trucks. And I just don't believe that that's a relevant argument for the demolition of the building. That was something that was mentioned on the tour. To our group.
Mr. Chair, that was what was the basis for the initial demolition approval that we have at hand. It was not for this particular piece. I may have, when I was speaking, you might not have understood what I was saying.
This is Commissioner Zhang again. One of the reasons this application frustrates me is that in 2022, NJPAC said that they had to demolish Cathedral House because they couldn't get their trucks into the turning radius behind Cathedral House for the loading dock with the structure there. And then after deliberation with the commission, the applicant presented a new traffic study that showed that they could move the trucks into the loading docks for the structure. And so it turned out that the initial 2022 reason presented for demolishing the structure turned out to be no longer valid when after discussing with the commission presenting a revised alternative. And so, I mean, what I'd like to see from the applicant here is a deeper study of what the alternatives are to demolition, that we've gone through a series of attempts to demolish the structure and a series of reasons presented over the years. A few years ago, the conversation was whether or not this was a site of Black history. And then the conversation was, well, this structure has to be demolished because it interferes with the turning radius of the trucks. And then now the structure has to be demolished because there's asbestos and because it interferes with the applicant's timeline. Is that this structure here is really, to my mind, the last remaining historical asset or last remaining landmark assets that's still on NJPAC's campus. And therefore, it's possibly the last liability that's on NJPAC's campus. And so for risk of being angry here, this conversation, we keep on cycling back on these reasons.
So thank you, Commissioner Zhang. If there's no any more comments from the commissioners around this, I think we can, Madam Secretary, go to the public for public comments.
Have a raised hand, perhaps. Let me bring them in. Okay, Commissioner Smith, we're gonna have, everyone is gonna have, because I have like 4 other raised hand, everyone's gonna have 3 minutes.
Okay,
for
everyone
them to
gets
make
3
their
minutes.
point. Yes. I just brought in NJ reference.
Hello. So sorry about that on my screen. My name is Tom Ankner. I'm the president of Newark Landmarks. I spoke at the last meeting. I just wanted to bring to your attention that Newark Landmarks has come out with a position paper on the demolition of the Cathedral House, and I'd like to just summarize this a little bit. Some of the points have already come up in the meeting, but some of the things we want to bring to the attention of the board as they vote on this and of the commission. The Cathedral House, a building of historical significance, must be saved from demolition. In order to approve this or any demolition, the LHPC must follow the guidance set forth in the City of Newark Ordinance, which states 7 considerations to take into account. Asbestos is prevalent in historic buildings and has been successfully remediated and/or contained in countless adaptive reuse and preservation projects throughout the city and state. Asbestos presence is not a condition recognized by the ordinance as valid grounds for demolition. NJPAC should be called upon to remediate the asbestos in the Cathedral House and preserve the building as agreed in 2022. Please honor the 2022 agreement between the New Jersey Performing Arts Center and the Newark Preservation and Historic Landmark Commission that called for the preservation of the entire front half of the building. Respect the history of the building. A rectory for the Diocese of the Episcopal Church of Northern New Jersey in 1940, the home of Bishop Benjamin M. Washburn, who lived there, architects John and Wilson Eli, who designed it, attendees of the Black Power Conference in 1967 who met there, artist Paula Scher, who painted super graphics on the outside of the building, the young aspiring artists who studied there. It is a meaningful building for multiple generations. The building can be used for many constructive purposes in the future. Other institutions could partner with NJPAC and program this space in ways that don't interfere with the other components of the development. The Halved building could even house a completely new institution, such as a Newark African American History Museum. The building needs to remain a contributing structure to the Military Park Historic District. The concept of replacing a historic building with a park and a plaque establishes an egregious precedent for historic preservation. As historic preservation commissioners, protect historic buildings instead of approving their destruction and erasure. The loss caused by demolition is permanent. Historic resources, once destroyed, are gone forever. Newark communities have suffered the loss of historic resources for decades, with tacit agreement from local leaders and institutions. Let this stand as one that will be protected from destruction. Please, protect this building. Thank you.
The next speaker, Madam Secretary.
Yes, let me just remove
Take him
this
out.
person, then I'm gonna, yes, let me take him out and okay, I'm gonna bring in, oh,
He's still here.
yeah, okay. Okay, I'm gonna bring in one Shakur. Fahimai
Fahimi
Shakur.
Shakur.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Please pardon my camera being off. Thank you so much, Commissioners and Chair Anthony Smith. I deeply appreciate this thoughtful dialogue and hearing all the sides and concerns, both pro and con, about this project. My name is Fayemi Shakur. I serve as the city's Arts and Cultural Affairs Director. I actually spearheaded the Harriet Tubman Monument Project along with local historians and stakeholders. And for transparency, I do also serve on the board of NJPAC as a liaison for Mayor Baraka. So many things to say. I know we only have a few minutes and I didn't write down my remarks, but a few things to address regarding any conflict of interest. You'd be really hard pressed to find anyone who has worked consistently in the art and culture ecosystem of Newark without some type of interaction with NJPAC. They are more than significant cultural giant in our community. They are a collaborator and a partner that has worked, supported, and advocated for the arts, as all of you know, for decades, and we value their work. But I do understand and listening to the concerns about historic preservation, and I think it's important that we value buildings and structures, but not more than culture. My last name is Shakur. I changed my name in college. Shakur is the family name of Black Panthers in the Black Liberation Army. So I care deeply about Black history. And I do agree with the comments from Commissioner Epps that an outdoor park would really provide an opportunity to raise awareness about the significance of the Black Power Conference in a way that a building simply would not. We have seen for certain the impact that the Harriet Tubman Monument has had on our park and our community. And being so close by to that monument, this proposal that NJPAC is offering is deeply thoughtful and offers an opportunity for tours and engagement beyond, I think, eliminating or disregarding concerns about asbestos and safety. I think those concerns about asbestos and safety and lead, especially in Newark, should be deeply concerning to us, and asking them to revise their proposal um, just would set back so much, not just financially, but the timeline for anyone who's ever worked on development projects and the planning that goes into design and fundraising. You know, it would definitely cause damage to the organization and the project. And I just look forward to hearing the commissioner's votes and decision regarding this. But I for one, support the proposal for a park as an educational opportunity, place to add these cultural landmarks and events to the Black Historic Trail. And working on behalf of the city, I'd be happy to continue to work on that engagement and make sure our residents are aware of the history that has taken place at this location. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, can you bring
Yes.
in the next speaker, please?
Second.
This is Commissioner Zhang. I'll just say that I think that this commission should not discuss it as an either or order, either a park or a building. Immediately behind the current Cathedral House, there's proposed to be 15 or so parking spots.
Commissioner
Even if
Zhang,
given over,
not-
even
not-
if,
Commissioner Zhang,
even if,
Commissioner
even if
Zhang,
giving over
Commissioner
7 or
Zhang.
8 of the parking spots behind the structure to be a park use allows to have both the preservation of Cathedral House and the park. I don't see why we're seeing this as either it's a park or either it's a building or a
Commissioner
vacant
Zhang,
structure.
but Commissioner
Yeah.
Zhang, you're interrupting right in the middle of public comments. That's disrespectful. Let the public speak, and then you can speak after they speak.
I'm going to bring in Ms. Holloway. Ms. Holloway, can you unmute yourself and you can start? You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, commissioners. I guess it's right on time for me to be brought in because Chairman Smith, the last comment you just made about being disrespectful definitely resonates here a lot for what the portion of this that I've heard. I haven't heard many of you represent the voices or the concerns about the community in this. It's really disheartening to hear most of you with the connections that you have to to NJPAC, to the city, that will come on here and just blatantly advocate solely on behalf of this applicant. to hear our city's director of arts and cultural affairs, who we love the work that she's doing, but to not at once mention the voices of the community, the people here. Commissioner Epps, we love Commissioner Epps as a neighbor, as a former neighbor on James Street. And again, the advocacy seems to be slighted already, that it's clear where you're going with this. And I think that it's unaligned with Mayor Baraka's vision for supporting community voice, for supporting community decision making. And I think that you all know that over the years, this is not new for us. We have consistently worked with NJPAC, and I respect the CEO, I respect Tim, and I always have. But it seems like that respect is only expected of us and not given to us. Because where is it in this process that it's a no? I am not here to quote about the laws, or any of that, because I think you have it. But it also seems that despite of that, you're in spite of those laws, you're going to put the community again in a situation where we have to fight when you're supposed to be on here representing us. You're supposed to be representing the interests of the residents of the city, not just the NJPAC. And so where is the effort in making sure that both sides are creating a solution in this that works for both, right? Where it satisfies both. Yes, culture is important to all of us, but to say that the culture of this building, the culture of a park kind of gives more allegiance to this than the culture of the preserving the building, dismisses historic preservation. And this is something that we have constantly asked our mayor and the administration to give strength, because preservation is a tool for us. Preservation is a tool for affordability. It's a tool for community development. And I know you all care about this. You wouldn't be commissioners. So I'm just respectfully asking Commissioner Grossclough, you know us, Commissioner Chairman Smith, Commissioner Epps, Commissioner Nance, Commissioner Zhang, we are asking you as the community, Historic James Street Commons neighborhood, to deny this application. And they're not going to stop until they get what they want. They've proven that. This is why it's a different application every time it comes. It's a different reason every time it comes. But we're asking you as Newark residents, as commissioners of this landmark board, that we are together, we're united. We're saying we don't want it. We're saying that we've asked our mayor to support us in historic preservation of this. And every time we have to come here to fight to get you guys to support us. So please, we're asking for respect as well, Chairman Smith, in this, in that you respect the fact that we are opposed to this. We do believe there are alternatives to this, and our interests are to preserve the Cathedral House. So we're asking you to respect us and vote no on this application. We can go back to the drawing board if they are interested in doing that, but they need.
Do we, she dropped off. Do we have another speaker from the community?
One second. I
Actually,
have Zemin.
Please again.
I have Zemin Zhang.
Mm-hmm.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Zhang. How are you?
Yes. And I'm a 35 years resident of the city. I'm a student of Newark's urban renewal in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. During those painful period, and government sponsored but flawed approach destroyed the city infrastructure and its history, therefore deprived the city's inspiration in the future and the lifeline. We have been suffered ever since. NJPAC's mission was to bring our history, our lifeline back. Hello?
We hear you, sir.
We preservationists and scholars and concerned citizens fully understand that a city can only grow with an organic and incremental approach. Therefore, the historical preservation is not an individual taste or somebody's privilege to interpret it. Rather, it's a philosophy. The city will rely on this. In the past, I know some of us are intimately familiar with the Clinton Hill neighborhood. During the urban renewal, the heated urban renewal, one of the scholars, Stanley Winters, who lives in Clinton Hills, organized the Clinton Hill Council, pleaded the city to take a correct approach for the city's future. And his voice is still with us. This is not a luxury. The city set up a commission to evaluate. It's not our project, but it's a basic philosophy of how the city prospers, how the city grow. Therefore, I urge the commission to take a challenge to maintain our city's future, not only specifically on this project, but particularly on what the issue we are facing. And as we point out, as the broadly reported by the media, there are lots of conflict interest here. And I think that I respect my neighbor, and some of the commissioners recuse themselves, and I think and others will follow to respect the public trust. And I don't think the case will stop here. Thank you. I urge them vote for your conscience, not buying that very easily composed excuses again and again.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I have,
Secretary, you have
yes.
another?
Yes, I have one, Tim Christ. I'm gonna bring that person in. And then after him, I have 3 more raised hand.
Okay.
Mr. Christ, can you unmute yourself? And you have 3 minutes.
There we are. I'm Tim Christ. I was a member of the first Landmarks Commission after it was formed, and I'm also a co-founder of the Newark History Society some 25 years ago. I know how difficult these decisions can be, but I encourage you to approve this change in NJPAC's plans for Cathedral House. I'd like to touch on 3 points: history, streetscape, and NJPAC's credibility in requesting this change to their plans. First, the National Black Power Conference was an important event in Newark's history, and indeed in U.S. history. And the Newark History Society is planning to mark the 60th anniversary with a presentation by Professor Kamosi Woodard of Sarah Lawrence University in 2027. And as Commissioner Epps pointed out, there are other layers to history in this area. And I might point out that at the time of the revolution, this was I believe, the home of Israel Hedden, who was the secretary of the Committee of Observation for Newark during the revolution. Creating a curated urban park space will do much to commemorate the National Black Power Conference and perhaps other layers. And it will do more to preserve that than preserving the building, in my view. Second is the question of the streetscape and the role of Cathedral House as a contributing element in the historic district. I know the building from attending meetings of a social service agency on whose board I served in the 1980s. And in my view, it's a solid but not particularly distinguished building. Retaining the facade, again, in my view, is a reasonable effort to maintain the streetscape. The third question is whether NJPAC is dealing in good faith with the commission, and that's for you to decide. But I am convinced, both from my experience and from reviewing the current matter, that NJPAC deserves any benefit of the doubt, particularly given the integrated nature of this overall project. They have earned their credibility by how they serve the Newark community and by how they engage with community groups and by how they focus on the greater good for Newark. So for all these reasons, I urge you to approve this change in NJPAC's plan in order to facilitate the timely completion of their overall project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kevlin, I think we have 4 more hands raised. We have Marby,
Yes. I'm bringing
Tammy
them in.
Holloway coming back,
Yes.
Bill Yurish, and Barbara Bell Coleman.
I'm going to bring in Marbury, Marbury's iPhone. I'm going to bring that person in. Can you please unmute yourself? And you can start your discussion. You have 3 minutes. Marbury's iPhone.
Yeah, yes, sorry. Okay. Good evening. Before I make my comments, I just want to comment on the previous speaker as almost in need of recusing himself. Mr. Chris from the New Jersey History Society gets funding from NJPAC, so it's not exactly like he is an objective speaker. But anyway, that being said, I'm going to go ahead and make my remarks, which is that one has to wonder if NJPAC has ever had a serious interest in carrying out its commitment to rehabilitate the Cathedral House, since the Newark Preservation and Landmarks Commission once again told them to do so in 2022, which we've already pointed out many times tonight. NJPAC found a solution to the loading base problem, which was the original reason for the demolition request. 1 year later, in 2023, NJPAC issued an RFP entitled Rehabilitation Project for 24 Rector Street at a cost of $2.5 million. Either there were no bidders or the project never got off the ground. However, no mention was made of asbestos remediation, even though Whitman Engineering had already been in the building in 2022 for inspection. So NJPAC in reality is looking for the most expedient way to get out from under the Cathedral House obligation. And they found it: asbestos. Asbestos used routinely in buildings of the age of Cathedral House. Let's claim it's too expensive to rehabilitate, and that even if we do, we don't want to put people back in there. So, and let's also claim that to rehabilitate will delay the entire project by 6 months to a year and put the entire project at risk of funding. It seems to me, and it should be clear to you, commissioners, that the pattern here is that NJPAC just doesn't want to rehabilitate the Cathedral House, even if it twice promised. They're looking for expediency and is looking for you, the commissioners, to grant that. So I'm urging you not to do it. Don't give in to their need for expediency. NJPAC can keep its 2022 promise. They can find the money. And the overall project, I don't believe, will be at risk of funding, because it's hard to believe that NJEDA would actually put NJPAC's funding at risk. If it did, I'd like to see the documentation right now, right here. In closing, I want to say that all preservation eyes in Newark are watching this unfold. Preserve, which is your mission, or demolish and do NJPAC's bidding, because that's what you're doing. You are doing NJPAC's bidding. If Cathedral House doesn't meet the criteria for preservation, then we might as well say goodbye to historic preservation in Newark altogether. Please vote. Don't vote to demolish this building. Please don't demolish this building. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like we have 4 hands up. We have Tammy Holloway coming back. She spoke about 2 minutes. She wasn't able to finish because she froze.
Well, she have a minute now because I have my timer on. She
Yeah.
went over her time.
Right back to, I'm just going to finish briefly because it's going right back to disrespect. I didn't freeze. My mic was cut and I was put out back as an attendee. So these are the kind of things that kind of just reek of just disregard for our voices.
Ms. Holloway,
Chairman
respectfully.
Smith, no, wait a minute. You cut
Holloway,
another commissioner off. You cut a commissioner off when he was doing his. Yes, this is my time to speak. Why? The lady who's handling the in and out, she put me back as an attendee. I did not freeze.
we all saw you froze, and that's why we moved on. That's all I was going to say to you, Ms. Holloway.
Okay. Well, bottom line is this, right? Like, I didn't come here to be upset or frustrated at all. I am simply exercising my right as a community leader and a voice to say that I'm hoping that you all will do the right thing in this situation and vote to deny this application. And this does require, just looking at John Schreiber's demeanor during this meeting and completely dismissive to anyone who dissents. And this is not what we stand for. This is not who we are. We don't allow people to come here and tell us what we're going to do in the future of our community or what is best for us. We are about historic preservation. They have had several reasons for tearing this down. They're mission driven to tearing it down. And we as a community want it to stay. We believe in this. It's a part of our community. It's a part of our culture. It's a part of our history. And you cannot tell us, the other guy that came on here, Tim, that, oh, our culture is better celebrated in a park. Well, he can celebrate his culture in the park or however he likes it. We want to preserve the building. That is the mission of this board. I am requesting that the commissioners here that support community and community voices and community decision making and community development initiatives, that you deny this application because it's the right thing to do. NJPAC needs to work with us. They need to work with us to find a solution for whatever the issue is that they're trying to solve without a demolition. Thank you. And now you can return me back as an attendee.
Thank you, Ms. Holloway.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I'm going to bring in Phil Urish. Don't know why. I keep bringing them in and changing it over to panelists, but I don't know.
Mr. Urish, you might receive a push notification inviting you to become a panelist. If you do, please accept it.
He declined.
Okay.
Move on to the, we're gonna move on. I have Dave Robinson. I'm gonna bring him in.
Hold on 1 second.
Hello, Mr. Robinson.
Good evening, commissioners.
Good
My name is
evening.
Dave Robinson.
You're echoing.
I'm sorry. Is that better?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay, good evening, commissioners. My name is Dave Robinson. I'm a resident here, City of Newark. I'm a registered architect, state of New Jersey, and a professional planner. And I am a partner at the Studio for Urban Architecture and Design here in Newark. Been here for 25 years, practicing and saving Newark buildings. The majority of our work is here in Newark. I appreciate all you commissioners, what you do. And I just want to urge you to vote no to this application and to make the applicant come back with a better plan. You know, remediation has to occur regardless. They can't demolish the building and poison the environment and the air quality, so they have to remediate anyway. And you know, there's been historic events that occurred on this parcel. Those are tremendous reasons to identify a piece of land as historic, but also this buildings is part of the urban fabric of our city, especially downtown Newark, which has critical loss of historic buildings. So we have to maintain those. It's about the streetscape. It's about conforming to how people lived and how people built. And you know, the history of the city is so important. The NJPAC is an amazing institution. You know, I support what they do in terms of cultural experience and bringing culture to Newark and embracing, you know, arts and culture. But they have to engage with all of us and preserving historic infrastructure and streetscapes is so important to our city, the third oldest city in this country. And you know, it's in jeopardy of, you know, of losing its character with new construction. So commissioners, you have a great responsibility to preserve, you know, the historic heritage of our great city. And you know, I just want to say, you know, that you need to. I'm going to urge you to vote no and make this applicant come back with a better plan. If it's a park, if it's a building, or if it's a combination of two, that would be wonderful. It's not going to slow construction down. They are well advanced, and this is a parcel off to the side, so don't fall for that. You know, this happens all over the world. You know, Rome, Boston, Philly, Newark should not be, you know, singled out because of financial, you know, restrictions. Because you know, I think we're better than that. We're just like everyone else. We're like Rome. We're like Boston. You know, we're like Paris. This is an amazing city, and I think you just, you know, please vote no. Have them come back with a better plan that, you know, preserves history, preserves streetscape, preserves culture, and preserves the historic events that happened on this site and the historic character of this building. Appreciate your time, all you commissioners. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
You're gonna meet, right? 1 second, let me take Mr. Robinson out. Right, and 1 second. Okay, let me try to bring in Mr. Ruiz. Then I'm gonna.
Her name is Madeline Ruiz. Mrs. Ruiz.
Okay, let me get Dave out now.
candid video.
Hello,
Ms.
good
Lewis, are
evening.
we
First of all, I want to thank you for all the great work that you do. Um, it's actually like thankless work that you do. And I know that firsthand because my husband served on the commission for many years. My name is Madeline Ruiz. I'm a resident of Newark. I have been here since 1985. I am also an architect, a graduate from NJIT, and I observed your previous meeting regarding NJPAC, and it left me with a lot of questions. And so I looked for answers and I contacted the state environmental department and an expert in asbestos. And basically, he said that clearly the objective of NJPAC is to demolish this building. And I suspect, based on the subpar rendering that is not as sophisticated as the campus, it actually looks like maybe someone's child created it. I suspect that Newark may be hoodwinked, that your commission may be hoodwinked into thinking that there might be a pocket park, a missing tooth filled in with green and benches and some pathways. But what in fact is really behind this is their initial intent, which is the biggest thorn for anyone who knows me on this commission, my side, the biggest thorn on my side. I believe that what they want to do is surface parking. And this little silly park that they showed you last time will turn into that. And a loading dock and excuses for why that had to happen. According to the state of New Jersey, before a building can be demolished, it has to be completely abated correctly by the law of asbestos. So if the asbestos removal is costing NJPAC $1 million, which is pennies compared to the $300 and almost $40 million they're spending on the campus, they would have to spend that anyway, because they would have to correctly remove the asbestos to make sure that it does not go airborne and make citizens ill. So they would have to correctly remove that. So if they're correctly removing it, clearing the entire building is per their obligation, then why the hell would they demolish it? I love the building, not only for what it is or was, but I love the artistic mural on that building today. that NJPAC commissioned. It's beautiful. So this makes no sense. This makes no sense. I hope that you're not hoodwinked, persuaded, compromised by your relationships with NJPAC. I hope you put Newark first. I hope you put Newark first. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Ruiz.
Okay, I have one Belle Coleman. I'm going to bring in, that's the last person.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Barbara Bell Coleman. I'm getting feedback, but I hope you're not.
You maybe have two instruments on, maybe you have to. Okay, I think she cut off. She went off. Chair, she got cut off. I did not know. Okay, okay, this
Bring it
Irish,
back in.
yeah, I don't know. She got cut off. But this Irish person came back. I'm gonna try to bring him in.
Okay.
She was having some difficulties. I don't know why. Okay. Mr. Urish? Something is going on with this person because I'm bringing them in and I don't know what's going on with this person, Mr. Urish, but
He has two hands raised.
yeah, but it's it declined. He has his hand raised, but just so when you try to bring him in, it's being declined.
Can Ms. Bell come back or?
I don't see her.
I see her.
Yeah, but
Mr. Yurish, could you raise your hand from the device that you would like to be promoted from? We see two of your hands raised.
I tried the first one. Okay, he's in. Mr. Urish, you have 3 minutes. You can start with your comments. Mr. Urish. This person is having some technical difficulties.
Okay, both of the hands are raised again.
Okay, let me try to bring back in Ms. Bell. Because something is definitely going on with Mr. Urish. Ms. Bell, can you unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Bell.
Thank goodness. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Sorry for the difficulties. I wanted to quickly identify who my father was, Dr. Nathan Wright, Episcopal priest. He was asked by Adam Clayton Powell to convene the National Black Power Conference in Newark, New Jersey in 1967. We had just moved from Boston, our family. My father took on the new position created in Newark by the Newark Diocese of Newark at 24 Rector Street as head of the urban work for the Episcopal Diocese of Newark. So his office was on the second floor of 24 Rector Street. He was the first man of color that actually had an office in that building back in 1963. When Adam Clayton Powell called my father, we lived in Orange, he said to my father, Nathan, you must organize a Black Power conference. Otherwise, Newark is going to burn to the ground, and it must be held at the Episcopal Diocese headquarters at 24 Rector Street. That was done, obviously, and over 1,000 people from all over the country came to that conference. It was the same summer as the rebellion in Newark, so it was a tricky time. Fast forward to today, I must say that I actually vote in favor of the park. But I vote in favor of the park with the caveat that it has a series of, and I don't know the correct terminology, kiosks that tell the story of the Black Power Conference, that gives the history of Newark in another kiosk, and another one of the cathedral itself as a landmark facility, and one that brings to light and life all the people that were buried there or wherever in that land that were not appropriate, whether it was the Lenape Indians or whatever else, so that the park would tell a story, much as Linda had talked about the other elements of such an extraordinary green space. Right now, it is very limited whether you keep the facade or the whole building. It is very limited in terms of the amount of people that would ever have access to that building. If it was a public park, and we do not have enough open space in Newark, particularly given the increased amount of housing that is going up, which is a wonderful issue to have, where the population, which shrunk so, is now beginning to grow, and people are beginning to see value in Newark, its location, its history, and everything else. But I think one of the things that we must do is, when I was growing up much earlier, it was always one-sided. Even, my father being the first person of color to work in that organization, not in the cathedral itself, or in the other churches, but in that particular office building. And I want to make sure people know that that was not a church, it was the office of the bishop. And, and that's what it was, office space. So I really support, even though it will not be a very large park, that it will be a park that many, many more people will have access to, many more children and families. We need more green open space. We need to not just have a plaque on the building or preserve a building. That does not tell the story of the Black Power movement, nor the people that work so hard to help change America. So I would really urge that we go forward with the plan that NJPAC has had. They've been a trusted partner since inception. They've added great value and life to the city of Newark. They have been in every community and neighborhood throughout the city in a way that has never been done before. And I think they have worked well and it has been, a true collaboration and a bringing together of Newark in a way that Newark had not been brought together until many, many years ago, post the riots, when, quite frankly, and this probably sounds very self-serving, when a group of women in the North Ward, Forest Hill section, got together and started the Cherry Blossom Festival to bring people from every single ward of the city of Newark, to bring people to a park, bring people to Branchbrook Park, to commune together, Black, white, Asian, whoever you were, Portuguese, whatever. It was a bringing together. It was a healing time for people to come to witness the blooming of the cherry blossoms in Branchbrook Park. As the population begins to rebound and grow again, we need more parks. We have so many people that have started living in that area already, and there are not enough adequate green spaces. Just imagine a green space where many people in that neighborhood could walk to, could go in, play, nature nurtures, but also learn the history of the cathedral house and the people that work there and the Black Power Conference. To me, you're on the right track, those of you who advocate for that. And I hope that the, Historic Society, sees the benefit and will work with NJPAC, who has been a treasured partner like none other we have seen in the city of Newark for the last 25 or whatever years. So I urge that you strongly consider and vote in favor of going forward with the NJ-PAC plan.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman.
Thank you.
Okay, let me see. Okay, I have one Jason, it looks like Colbert. I'm gonna bring that person in. Then I have Susanna Ferris, that's one of our old commissioners. So I'm gonna bring her in after.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hi. Is it okay if I speak?
Yes, please.
Okay. My name is Jason Colbert. I was a resident of Newark for 16 plus years. I went to the NJSOA at NJIT, graduated with Bachelor in Architecture. I very much miss Newark and the character of the streetscapes and the character of the people. But I'm also a practicing architect, and I can say from experience that there are many things to be careful about in an application such as this. While I do think that it's dubious to say that you can preserve the character of a streetscape by consuming a building from the inside and parking trucks in there, even if it were to proceed, there have been instances in my own professional career where a developer promised to preserve a historic building facade, and in one particular instance, put inadequate shoring up, and it collapsed during construction of the project. And they basically shrugged and said, okay, well, if it's part of the approval, we'll just rebuild it. We'll make building the rest of the project easier. I'm happy to say that the city of Hoboken stopped them in their tracks and made them demolish the reconstructed carriage house. And our office provided detailed drawings for how to reconstruct the original facade using antiquated masonry techniques and in the geometry that was there originally and the part for the brick on the facade versus the sides, etc. But I think something similar would be possible in this case. It would be relatively easy for something to be promised, and then if it's not in some kind of signed agreement with consequences, if it's not followed, it would be very easy for them to shrug and say, oh, it just became a logistical inconvenience or impossibility, and give some excuse. And the character of the space would not only be destroyed irrevocably, but it would end up not functioning as intended in the application. Even if they say that the front half of the building is remaining, it would have to be clearly understood how that space would be utilized programmatically and able to be utilized by the citizens of Newark to a good benefit. It shouldn't just be about highest and best use. There has to be some consideration for the existing fabric of buildings and how, if they're still functioning and can be adaptively reused, it should not just be discarded for the sake of surface parking or truck turning or whatever have you. There are other solutions. There are always other solutions, even if they cost more, to those logistical problems.
Thank you, Mr. Colbert. And Mr. Urish, you got in. Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. And you're the last speaker.
All right. I'm Phil Urish. I'm the Executive Director of Newark Landmarks. And we don't see any credible reason to not follow through with the 2022 agreement. The Cathedral House can be remediated and put to good use in the near future. We see the primary role as the commissioners to protect historic buildings, not approving their destruction or erasing most of the history of the building. So we strongly believe that this building needs to be saved, and we urge you to vote no on this proposal.
Thank you, sir. And Susanna came back in. Susanna, you left out and you came back in, so you're the last speaker. Can you take Mr. Urish out? Madam Secretary, can you take him out?
One second, Anthony. Okay. Let me bring in Miss Holquin Ferris. Okay, that's the last person that's going to be joining us.
Welcome, Ms. Varus. I called you Susanna because I know you better. Hi, Ms. Varus.
Good evening, everyone. I really appreciate this discussion tonight, and I certainly learned a lot from everyone and from everyone's comments. However, I do want to focus on a single point because I know it's 8:11, it's very late. And that point is that this application as presented today just simply doesn't meet the criteria and the standards laid out in the ordinance for demolition in a historic district. And this ordinance is part of the zoning regulations of the city of Newark. The law is pretty clear on what's required to approve a demolition. And this commission doesn't have the authority to override that ordinance. An approval that is granted under these conditions, including the very obvious conflicts of interest that have been discussed and hinted at tonight, involving at least 4 of the commissioners that are present tonight, will certainly have grounds for challenging. I just urge all the commissioners present tonight to think about that possibility before casting a vote, and just remember what your mission is. That's all I had to say. Thank you very much.
Ms. Barris. Okay, so we've heard from all our commissioners, we've heard from the public, and we spent over 2.5 hours having great discussion about this particular application. Now that we're at this place, we need to go for a vote.
Mr. Chairman, may I just give a summation before you go to
Sure.
your vote and deliberations?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I've heard a lot regarding, I've heard a lot of things tonight, but I heard a lot regarding satisfaction of the ordinance for demolition. And if I can just briefly go through those points, because I think they were stated on the record, and they were certainly within our report that was submitted with a prior application. And this, I'll just remind the board, is an amended applications for the reasons that we discussed in the asbestos discovery. But number one, the historic architectural and aesthetic significance. This building was built just outside the period of significance for Military Park Common Historic District. While it is a contributing building, it is not a key contributing building. Second, looking at its historic use. Historically, this building has been used for offices of the diocese. The most significant event that occurred within this building was the Black Power Conference. 3, the importance to the city and the extent to which the historic value is such that removal would be detrimental to the public. Again, the most historical significance for this building was the Black Conference that occurred here. And as you've heard through testimony in the prior 2 hearings, there is a clear intent to commemorate that in an honorable way that will respect the history of what occurred on this site. Not only the Black Conference, but also the historic church and the other items that were stated on the record and suggestions for design. 3, the extent to which the building is of such old, unusual, or uncommon design, craftsmanship, and texture. Based on the prior report that was submitted, the most distinctive aspect of the building design is the craftsmanship, is the hallmark central parapet and original cast stone accents and detailing. As was stated, not only does the applicant intend to create a park, but they do intend to preserve the facade of the 3-story facade of the building that has the most important and significant architectural aspects of the building. So that will be preserved, and that's something that we shouldn't forget when deliberating on this application. The probable impact of the removal upon the ambience of the historic district. The current state of the building, the contributing attributes of it have been diminished due to the 2000 painting on the exterior of the walls. This was previously brick walls, and there was a modern design that has been painted onto it, which loses the historical significance or value. There is also a criteria for the structural soundness and integrity of the building. Well, we don't have a structural report. I'm not saying that it is not structurally sound. You have heard testimony and expert testimony from the applicant's environmental consultants speaking about the asbestos and remediation that is required to be had here. We've also heard throughout the course of this a lot of testimony from lay witnesses, experts, people that are non-experts, people that have not investigated the building themselves. And I would just say to you that we did have an expert consultant that was here that testified. I also would like to address the fact that John Schreiber, President and CEO of NJPAC, is a very credible man. And there have been a lot of allegations thrown around here this evening and last evening that somehow they are trying to hoodwink this commission. I personally find that offensive, having represented this organization. We have to remember that this is not a greedy developer here. This is a philanthropic organization, a nonprofit organization that's mission is to do good for the greater good of Newark, cultural and otherwise. And the application that was presented to this board, unfortunately, there was always the intent to abide by the 2022 approval and to retain the portion of the building. Whether you want to accept or not accept is up to you. But if Mr. Schreiber was sworn in tonight, I'm sure he would swear and affirm under oath what he had stated previously. That the only reason that they're not saving it is because they can't. It jeopardizes the entire project. Think of what that would look like. Half of scaffolding up in the city and it dying. Okay, so they came up with the best practical solution that they possibly could. That's preserving the most significant portion of the facade of the building and also creating a park that will commemorate all the activities that occurred on this plot of land, as was stated by many of the people this evening as well, that will bring out what happened and what occurred here to the greater public, rather than preserving it in a private building that's locked to the public. People could walk by there all day long and not know what happened there. Now there'll be a park, there'll be recreation, and there'll be commemorative statements saying what happened here so people can read and understand the significance of what happened. So for all those reasons, we ask that the commission look favorably upon this application. And I believe, based on the legal criteria, that you do have the authority to grant the demolition. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bester. We have two more raised hands, then we're gonna move to a vote. Commissioner, I'm not sure if Zhang came before 02.
Let me see who's there.
No, I'm not raised hands. I'm talking about our commissioner's hands.
This is Miss Ruiz. I don't know.
No. I said commissioners who want to speak right now.
No, but I was looking at the raised hand in the attendees list. So maybe that was just
I raised my hand, yes.
Yes. Commissioner Zhang?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Zhang. I'm sorry for speaking earlier. I apologize for letting my emotions get ahead of me. So here, I think about the history of NJPAC. My earliest and oldest experiences in Newark are as a child growing up near NJPAC and cycling around on the NJPAC's front lawn. And I have a lot of good memories of going to concerts at NJPAC, and my first exposures to the arts were through NJPAC. And so my views on this application are fundamentally in support of the applicant, not in support of what I'm seeing of the applicant today, but in support of what I think the applicant should do and could be doing, but has chosen not to or has refused to do today. We have numerous preservation plans for this structure over the years. We have agreements previously to preserve it. And it deeply frustrates me here is that we have decades here of urban renewal and displacement going on in the city by different agencies under different names. There's a lot of talk these days about land acknowledgements, that we've pushed the indigenous peoples from their land and we're going to acknowledge it through a plaque or a memorial in the space of where that building or when that piece once was. And so I think about what this park will be or what it might look like one day. I don't know what the park will look like exactly because the extent of the applicant's presentations for the new park have been schematic diagrams of trees that look like little broccoli sticks and not fully fleshed out with details of it. So that's what I see right here. I see their place to demolish this building or replace it with a drawing of broccoli sticks. This to me looks like an land acknowledgement. I can think 40 years in the future or 20 years in the future, what this place will look like. We have on the other side of Rector Street an empty lot, which is currently proposed for a 30 or 40-story structure. We have next door to it the former Ballantine Brewery, which is a 30-40 story structure. We have behind it to the south of this future park, we have a parking lot and a loading dock for trucks. And this loading dock for trucks is incidentally above the former African burial ground where there were several hundred graves of formerly of Revolutionary War soldiers and formerly enslaved people who were removed to build what is now the parking lot there. And then on the other western side, we have the Fireman's Insurance Company. So we have a park here surrounded by 3 towers on all sides in a parking lot that most likely charge rents that will be unaffordable to me. and most likely unaffordable to many other people on the Landmarks Commission and many people in Newark today. And that's not the future that I want to see. I don't see a land acknowledgement or a plaque or even a monument on the site of Cathedral House as being so much as a replacement for the building itself, for the actual kind of living history. I think what I struggle here, and I think this speaks to Commissioner Holgen various comments earlier, is that it's so difficult in Newark just to ask applicants to follow what is on the books in our landmarks laws. I think about the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and the Central Planning Board. These applicants come before those other commissions, and they ask for variances on street trees, on building heights, on the Iberia site, on maximum permeable lot coverage, and they get every single one of those exceptions and variances and additions to the law because we as commissioners, maybe not on this commission, but in other commissions, are simply afraid to say no, are simply afraid to say, you can do better, Newark deserves better, we all deserve better. I know that we deserve better as a city because I've seen this in all the other cities up and down the Northeast Corridor, in Boston and Philadelphia and New York City, in the African burial ground in New York City, in the site of Seneca Village in New York City. There are consistent attempts to memorialize history when it was erased. And here we have a site that has not yet been erased, that's a contributing structure in the historic district, that is aesthetically significant, that has monuments on the facade by a world-class artist, and we're demolishing it and replacing, in effect, a real history with a land acknowledgement. And I simply don't see a land acknowledgement as being an adequate replacement for a place that could be a real storytelling moment. Yes, it's true that the current structure is closed, and yes, it's true that members of the public cannot go into the current structure, but that doesn't limit what could be possibly done with the structure in the future. There's a possibility here for an arts center, a cultural center, an entertainment center, for artists to display their things inside the building, for people who believe in Black arts and Black power to stand in the same places where leading civil rights leaders spoke and to add their art to that narrative. And that can be deeply powerful and deeply meaningful. So I just feel that as a commission, we are underselling ourselves. We are underselling our city. We are settling for less because we are afraid to say no to NJPAC. But the NJPAC that I see today, I'll say in conclusion, is not the NJPAC that I recognized growing up in Newark. I recently looked up NJPAC's name, and I saw that the name of NJPAC was the New Jersey Performing Arts Corporation. It was no longer the New Jersey Performing Arts Center. And I don't want NJPAC that's a corporation. I want to see NJPAC that's a community center and a community organization, and not this organization that has turned to gentrification and development that pays executives with million-dollar salaries. Newark deserves so much better. Let's just give Newark a little bit hope, a little bit more. Oh, God, that's enough.
Thank you, Commissioner Zhang. We have Commissioner O'Toole and Commissioner Forsythe, and then we're going to move on.
This is Commissioner O'Toole. In one of the public comments, an architect by the name of Madeline, I guess I would preface this or ask this to Tim. She said that the persons that she spoke to said that before the building is demolished, it would have to be abated for the asbestos. Can you confirm or deny that?
I can. She's both, that is both true, but it's a little misleading. It has to be abated before it's demolished, but it can be abated in a significantly different and quicker way. The challenge we have on, as we testified last time, the abatement is under a subchapter. I'm going to get the section wrong, at 8, I think, but it requires an abatement as if the building is being occupied while the abatement's happening. If you are demoing the building, you can abate the building in a much more efficient and expedited way. So yes, but it's not the same thing.
Commissioner O'Toole? Okay. Commissioner Forsythe?
Hi, I find that the difficulty in terms of approving a demolition of a building is very difficult to do when there isn't any design involved. I mean, the design of the park was remedial at best. And I would like to give the opportunity to Mr. Schreiber or Mr. Lazora or Mr. Williams to discuss their future plans.
May I, Commissioner, Chairman Smith,
Yes.
may I speak? And then I'll ask
Sure.
Tim Lazur to follow on. The design that we showed in the presentation last month was not in any way, shape, or form a sophisticated park design. We have not designed the park yet. It is our intention to engage with an urban park designer of reputation and merit to do that work. So when Commissioner Zhang says that it looked like broccoli stick figures, that was a preliminary, simply a space representation of where the park might sit. It is our intention to engage with a first-class urban park architect, come up with a design plan for the park, and then come back to this commission to review this plan, comment on this plan, and eventually get to a mutual approval of the plan. The comments that were made today by Commissioner Epps, for example, I mean, those are really good ideas, and we are going to engage community in the planning of this park space. So that's our plan forward. We need your permission and your approval in order to advance this work. And part of that work will be the engagement of an architect to create a first-class urban park space that the city deserves. And I would ask my colleagues to comment further if they care to with the commission's approval.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, I agree. John's outlined it exactly right. We wouldn't dream to be able to do this in isolation. We would, well, the way we had framed the request last time is that due to the current schedule necessities, we ask for approval for the demolition, and then we come back with a plan that the commission would approve. And it would take probably 4 to 6 months to get to the right place to do that. And then we would eventually build the park, and we wouldn't seek final approval from the city for the project until all that's made. So we won't be done, and we won't be able to certify for all those credits from the tax credit perspective. So you'll have our full attention.
Thank you. Commissioner Nance, then Mr. Junius Williams.
I just wanted to ask a quick question, and I agree with Commissioner Zhang's point that the drawings are subpar for this meeting. But I wanted to ask about behind the portion of the facade that's being preserved is an empty plot. I don't recall a discussion about what was going to be done behind that plot, and I'm not quite sure why we're not extending that to be the entire park, and I'm sort of afraid that it might end up being parking. So could you clarify what your intent is?
Mr. Chairman, yes.
Yes.
This is we don't know the structure to hold the facade back up, so we're not we're preserving our ability in case you need lateral supports or things of that nature in that area. To the extent that we can utilize that area to expand the park, we're perfectly happy to do that. But I think that will be part of the shreds and the community input and the final design.
Did that answer your question, Commissioner Nance?
Yes, but I just wanted to add it's unfair to us to not understand exactly what's going to be done with this demolition, and to not understand more clearly what the park will be. Well, not just the park, but also you're talking about doing the structure behind the facade, and so I just think that it would behoove the commission to have more information on this report.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Zhang. I'll add to Commissioner Nance's comment that currently the paved surface area behind the depth of the facade extends for the full width of the park, which is 30 or 40 feet behind the width of the facade. But in all the cases where I've seen structural supports to support a facade, it's only been to a 10 or 15-foot depth. And so the area behind the proposed facade for preservation is a good deal larger than what seems to be strictly necessary for a preservation plan, which leads me to wonder if that area behind the facade will become surface parking. Thank you.
Tim,
Okay.
I think you can, Mr. Junius Williams, he's helping with the design of this park. If he can please speak, he's had his hand raised.
He was coming next.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Chair, I think Commissioner Caldwell Epps has her hand raised.
I can't see it, and maybe
Yeah,
'cause
she has her hand raised.
okay. Carwood Epps and Commissioner, I can't see your hand, but if you're there, go ahead and speak. What Epps? She froze. Commissioner Carwell Epps?
Her mic is off, so. Ms. Epps? Commissioner Epps?
I believe she's in the weight room, Ms. Kevlin.
Oh, she's here on the list, on the panelists. Yeah. She's there on the panelists.
May I, Mr. Chairman, while we're waiting, may I say
Yes,
something?
yes, Mr. Williams.
Uh, specifically with respect to what Ms. Forsyth requested, the idea, but I have a few more comments just based on what I've been listening to, and it's been very interesting as a person who has been involved in Newark planning decisions and observations for many years. One of the things that I definitely have an opinion about is comparing what NJ Pack is doing with urban renewal back in the 1960s. I was one of those people who fought very diligently against those urban renewal projects, which were used to make sure people made money. Some people made money, and the community wasn't thought about, as opposed to NJ Pack and John Schreiber, which has been a great asset to the city of Newark. In terms of programming, I think we have to put this whole conversation in the context of what is going to be developed. What is going to be developed? What do we gain and what do we lose is something that needs to be considered. Number two, what do we gain? We gain a park in an area which is heavily constructed with new housing and new activities. We also haven't thought about the fact that right next door to the Rector Street building is a building which is owned by Miles Berger, I believe. And that building is slated to become housing. It's going to be rehabilitated, and it's not just high rise, but I'm sorry, it's not just for high income people, but it's supposed to be for moderate and low income people, which means there are going to be a lot of children. Across the street, you've got the YMCA, lots of activities in the summer, and those activities are carried out in the street. They close the street. Wouldn't it be better to have something that everybody could use in green space? Building itself, yes, it's a nice building. I like the building. But when you put it in the context of what we're trying to do here, we're trying the actual park, Ms. Forsyth, if you look at the Harriet Tubman construct, which you said you had, think like that. What's going to be in that space? That's what the committee has in mind. I've talked to some people already, and that's the model that people have. We've also been talking to a landscape architect, and not we, the committee, but NJ Pack has commissioned and hadn't gotten to a contact yet, but it was a very nice, informed woman who came over to talk about the kinds of commemoration that she has been in charge of. It's called the Zwede Group. I believe it's Zewde. Is that the way it's pronounced, Tim? The Zwede Group, and it's based in Harlem. And you should see by just clicking on what they have there, you could see some of the commemoration that's done. So that in the balance, when you look at what can be, when you add all of these things together, you've got a 58,000 square feet uh, of hall of space that's going to be used to teach and allow people to participate in the arts, and you add all of the other kinds of assets that are being developed in this area, and you figure out what we want to do to commemorate the Black Power Conference, and I was one of those people who was there. We can't, we couldn't hold all the people in that one building, but that was a very significant building there. There's a lot of information about that building that can be conveyed structurally and certainly in terms of how we propose to use the space, so that some of those people who are going to be living around there, some of the people who are going to be coming from across the street, some of the people who are going to be affiliated and just want to come to see what the new park looks like as they do across the street with the Harriet Tubman. I think we lose a building, but we gain something for Newark. And I appreciate your passion, Miles. I've known young Miles Drake Zhang for a long time. His his son, my son, was in school with him. I appreciate your advocacy. I'm an advocate. I know a good advocate when I see one. But you can get the same thing for Newark with this park as we have for a building, which right now doesn't have this anybody going to use it. It would take another tremendous amount of investment for operations, not for construction. Let's say the building is reconstructed, but to operate that building, who's going to operate that building? Is there anybody who has a plan to do all the things that were put forward here today? I don't think so. But we do have a commission, we do have a commitment from NJPAC to put up this park. There are going to be people around. There are going to be ways in which people can interact with whatever is constructed. Well, I'm not an architect, but we can certainly, I can say that the 7 people or 8 people who are on this committee, who are going to be very much involved in the planning of what's going to happen, all of this will be taken into consideration, because these people are just as passionate as you are, Miles, about Newark, and just as learned about what other people are going to do. So combined with what the ideas that we have, but with what the Zwede committee, I'm sorry, the Zwede architectural firm can put up, we will surpass what kind of information we can get out about the growth of Newark combined with the history of Newark. And I think everybody here would be very much satisfied.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Williams.
I'll just add as I appreciate your comments and your praise, obviously. I'll just add as I think that this commission can really help to rally NJPAC to ask for more of the application. That I see that in the current proposal, behind the proposed park, there's a parking lot with about 15 parking spots. And I believe that if NJPAC gave over 7 or 8 of those parking spots to park use, it would be possible to have both the park to remember Trinity Church Burial Ground and Kojo Benkwante and that cemetery in addition to the building. So as I said many times before, it's not an either a vacant building or a vibrant park. And there's a possibility here of having both of those things coexist. And I hope that my other commissioners here will take those ideas into consideration and will hold NJPAC to the highest possible standard to be as good a neighbor as I know that we all can be. And I know that My vote is clear, and I hope that you will have the courage to join me in the way that I am trying to support NJPAC through my vote to deny the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Zhang. So we've heard from everyone. We've heard from the public and the commissioners and the applicants. Now it's time, if you're fine with it, applicants, for us to go to a vote.
Chair,
Well,
1 second. I'm seeing Ms. Ruiz has her hand raised.
And I was going to ask Mr. Chairman if before we go to a vote, if we have the opportunity to maybe just deliberate a little bit before
Sure.
we actually take a motion and a vote. Because I hear all the passion and from both sides, and I'd like the opportunity to elaborate.
Sure, absolutely.
I want to answer one question that was asked before about whether there would be parking behind the structure. We can affirm that there would not be. We're not hiding the fact that the design is not fully designed at this point in time. And I know it's unusual to be coming without the final design. However, we talked about it at the last hearing that there's a true timing sequela here that's an issue, but we can certainly agree that the first CO of any building could not be issued until we are back here with a design for the park and it's approved by the commission. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, are we still accepting public comments? Have we closed
No,
the
I think
public
we're finished with public
where are
comments.
we with this?
We're finished with public comments. So we're done with that, Madam Secretary. So we're at the point of having some deliberation and then moving towards a vote.
I'd be in favor. This is Commissioner Zhang. I'd be in favor of promoting letting Madeline Ruiz speak, given that previous people speaking about the application, such as Ms. Barbara Bell Coleman, had several minutes, and this has been one of the applications on the commission's agenda that has had the most amount of public interest.
I thought she spoke
She
already.
spoke
She already
earlier.
spoke already.
Yeah, she spoke already.
Yeah, she did make a comment. You went off camera. She made a comment. She
Yes.
spoke.
Okay. In that case, Ms. Madeline Ruiz can type her comments into the chat.
Okay, so we're at the point of deliberation and having a conversation around all of the conversation that we had around this application. So
Yeah, I can start, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the passion. And this is what public hearings are all about, having members of the public come out and express their thoughts and of what they see in application. And it only helps to improve the ultimate and the end game. For me, I have to balance preservation and safety. So that's where I am trying to strike that balance between how do you, with the deep respect that we all have for the historic preservation of the city. And I believe we all love this city so much, which is why you hear members of the public come out and speak in support and objection to the application. But I cannot, first of all, let me say that I too was offended by the questioning of the credibility of the applicant. And I also think it was disingenuous of us to think, because I think we heard at the last meeting that what the rendering was really not the rendering for the park. It was just a sketch, a mock-up. So we can't think that that truly was what was going to happen. And so the comments about, it's a whatever it is, we know because it was the applicant's testimony that this is not the rendering. This is just a layout. And ultimately, this is just a first step. They would have to go back to the planning board for a full site plan amendment approval. I also heard comments about why we have ordinances. Absolutely, ordinances are here, they're in place, but every applicant has the opportunity to seek relief from ordinances, which is why you have the planning board and the zoning board. So that's why you have these boards operate to grant reliefs or not to the different ordinances. I cannot discount the testimony of the environmental expert. And you can't ask me to discount that. As we balance preservation, we also have to balance safety. And so we have significant health risks, which I heard the testimony of the environmental expert. And so are we to then allow a building that has asbestos to remain for future generations? I don't know how we do that. I mean, I know there's an opportunity for abatement or containment, but I have to think about the significant health risk that asbestos brings. So just thinking through it.
Thank you, Commissioner Hollis. Is there any additional comments as relates to this application as we deliberate and move forward towards our vote? Okay.
I mean, this is Commissioner Zhang. If we approve this demolition, this would be the first time that we've, in the history of my known history of the commission, that we've approved a demolition without the complete site plans available for what the replacement will be. We're relying on the applicant to provide that full information. So I think that creates a new precedent, and I don't know where we go from there.
Yeah, and I think I think that's a great point that Mr. Zhang is raising about precedent. But every application stands on its own merit, right? And so precedent is we can't create precedent, and I agree with that. That should not be our stance where, because we approve NJPAC to do a demolition, if we approve it, because I don't know where this vote will go. But it's not about precedent. When you come before a board or a commission, every application stands on its own. There's no such thing really in land use about precedent. That it just, yeah.
Okay, that's a point taken. What I'll add is I think that there are two separate issues that should be separated here. I think the first one is the merits of the applicant, and then the merits of the application. That the merits of the applicant are beyond question. That we all recognize the key importance of NJPAC to promoting Newark. Then I think there's also the merits of the application, which is relying on the engineer's testimony. The report that they submitted to the commission doesn't include photos. It's only a page and a half. By contrast, the report that they wrote about the preservation of the structure was several thousand words, was really thoroughly documented. So my concern, the first concern is the merits of the application itself and the strength of the engineer's report. From the site visit, I see that you were shown a section of wall in the rear of the building already approved for demolition where there was asbestos. We weren't shown a section at the front of the building where there was asbestos. And the merits of the application, we also haven't been shown the full cost of what the exact dollar estimate is for the cost of remediation to renovate the building versus remediation of asbestos that's required before it's demolished. And if those two cost estimates are very similar, if there's an incredible difference of $1 million between asbestos remediation for demolition or remediation for preservation, that's a lot of money. If it's only $50,000 or $60,000, or if to remediate for demolition, to remediate for renovation costs the same thing, then that I think should be asbestos should be a mitigating condition that the commission ignore. So that's the first issue. I think the merits of the applicant and the merits of the application. The merits of the applicant are beyond doubt. The merits of the application are questionable. And then I think the second issue is of the value of the park, and if the park is a better way to remember that history than the building itself. I think historically this commission has considered the full plans of the replacement alongside the full plans of the demolition. At the same time, in my knowledge of all the previous applications, We weren't yet shown the plans for the replacement until we had been able to assess the building to be demolished on its own merits as the building itself. So the merits of Paul Asher, the merits of walking through the space, the merits of the architecture, the merits of the history alone. That I think the baseline assumption of the commission is that all of the buildings in the district are valuable, and regardless of how old they are, if they're in the district and landmark, they're valuable. And it wasn't historically the job of the commission to make the judgment whether or not the new building is a better replacement for the old. So I think the first one I'm clear about the merits of that the merit application doesn't have merits. The second one, whether or not the park is a better replacement for that history than the building itself, is I think something that the commission should consider.
And I agree with mostly of what you said, Mrs. Zhang, but I disagree with because they did not submit photos. I think because the applicant gave the commission an opportunity to do a site visit, that should balance out that issue. So the submitting photos, yeah, because it helps to add to the application. But because the fact that we had the opportunity to do a site visit, that should balance that factor out. And I don't know. Okay, so if they need to submit photos, maybe that should be if this gets approved, that would be a condition. Further, about not submitting the full-fledged plan for the park, that is something that I'm struggling with, Mr. Chairman, that should have been part of the full package as far as the demolition and then a new application. That should, we typically see both. But I'm open because I understand, although the financial and economic aspect of this project should really not come into play when we consider whether or not we're going to approve or deny this application. We really need to balance the preservation and safety aspect. And so we heard from the environmental expert that full remediation was not feasible. And that's where I'm stuck. I'm stuck on that fact that a full remediation is not possible. I have to rely on the expert. I am not an asbestos expert, so I can't say yes, they can do it. Yes, they can contain and they can abate the asbestos. I am not the expert, so I have to rely on the testimony that was placed on the record for that.
Thank you, thank you, Co-Chair. I'll just add if I can't speak to the strength of the engineer's testimony as to the quantity of asbestos. What I could say is that, to my understanding, the majority of buildings within historic districts before renovation have some kind of site contamination or some kind of asbestos, either lead pipes or asbestos installation. And so I think, to my mind, the question is less whether or not those buildings can be remediated and more about the applicant's timeline, that even if the building could be restored, the applicant is saying that on their financial timeline that they're not able to. And so the commission, that I think that gives the commission the opportunity whether or not to accept that financial reason as being the reason to approve demolition. That is, the applicant says they cannot afford to, because I don't think we've accepted those reasonings before, even though I also recognize your comment that every applicant's application stands on its own.
I just make a comment. I believe that I actually think that the fact that they don't have a design is a very good sign, because landscape architecture is very difficult to do. And this particular site is an extraordinary opportunity that really needs a lot of thought to proceed ahead in the right and manifest itself in the right way.
Thank you, Commissioner Forsyth. I see Commissioner Nance, see your hand up.
Yes, Commissioner Nance, I just wanted to add that my understanding of the engineer's report was that remediation is possible, just not within the timeline that NJPAC is trying to meet. And that's what I understood from his report.
This is Commissioner Zhang too. I never asked this of the applicant, but my understanding is that NJPAC's project has multiple phases, that phase 1 and phase 2, and that the project planning for phase 2 has already begun. And so would be curious to hear from the applicant or for the applicant in support of this application to provide evidence from NJEDA confirming the ability to move the completion of this project from phase 1 to phase 2. I think NJEDA is a Newark-based organization. They've given hundreds of millions of dollars of tax credits to Newark-based organizations, and I think that given the severity of this case and the importance of this building, I don't see NJEDA as a state agency working under a Democratic administration being hostile to making an exception in this one case in order to preserve this piece of Black history.
So you're saying, Mrs. Zhang, that before we can move on this, we need to hear from an outside agency of the financial, that yes, they can, they will not withhold. I don't even know why we're having a conversation about the financial and the economic aspect of this. I really don't want to spend time.
I don't either. I don't either. I think that this, I don't know what to do with it, but I think this application would have been stronger if the applicant had submitted a letter from NJEDA saying that it's impossible to extend this because of X, Y, and Z criteria, because then we're considering really three things with this application: the park, the design of the park, whether or not the park is better. We're considering the asbestos and whether or not it can be remediated. And those things are both in the works. And the third thing for which we do not have written evidence for yet is the claim that the project timeline cannot be delayed, or communication from NJPAC or from NJEDA saying to NJPAC that, this is impossible.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, but I cannot base a denial or an approval on timeline and finances and the economics of a project. That, yeah, you hear the testimony, that's great, and that's part of this overall conversation. I am let me pause.
Respectfully, I think that we've heard a lot about this application, and and everyone is very passionate about it. But I think after Mr. Williams, I think he wants to make a comment. I think we should move forward and to a vote.
This is Commissioner Zhang. I'll speak very quickly in my 30 seconds. This project for phase 1, I believe the applicant has until 2027 to complete that phase. I don't see the demolition of the building taking more than 3 or 4 months. So I think it is possible within the applicant's timeline for them to only begin demolition in 2026 or 2027. I don't see it as an immediate need for the commission to approve demolition tonight, given the applicant has 12 to 18 months afterwards to really work through different kinds of design proposals. So my suggestion would be for the commission to either deny the application or to not vote on the application. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Williams,
Can
your
I-
last.
sorry.
Yes,
Commissioner Nance.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted
I'll
to
wait.
clarify one thing. The conversation about economic hardship came from some documentation that we were sent over, but I believe it's outdated. So I have here Chapter 9, subsection 21, which is about economic hardship, but I don't believe that that's in the current ordinance. So that's where that conversation came from. So I'm
Great.
not quite sure that we can even evaluate this based on financial hardship.
Thank you. Mr. Williams?
Yeah, the burden of proof is what we ought to talk about. There's no doubt about it. That's a nice building, and the advocates for keeping the building have not talked about the elephant in the room, and that is the expense, the operating expense for keeping that building open. Not the construct of the building, not the construction, the remediation. That's a one-shot deal. But you don't have anybody who's going to take over that building right now and run it. The functions of that building, all of those are going to be shifted to the Cooperman Center, and that's 58,000 square feet, as opposed to I think 28,000 square feet or less in that actual 24 Rector Street. So who's going to run it? I've heard schools, I've heard a museum, I've heard all of those are nice things, but who's going to run it? And the building is just going to sit there? Because that's the only way you're going to get people in there to understand that wonderful story about the building. So the story itself in this particular situation, not all situations, not all buildings in Newark, but in this particular situation, given the context of what's being built, the millions of dollars being built to do things in Newark that haven't been done before, who's going to do, what are you going to do with that building? It's much more feasible to put that park up there and tell the story as it has been done in other places in the country. Look at what Zwede has done. That company has done. Look at what they have done, not all just in the country, but all over the world. The story is what we want told, and that's how I think. That's what I would suggest the committee look for. Unless somebody's got a buyer who's going to come in and buy that building and run it, and then you can put up all kinds of monuments, anything you want inside that building. But I don't see people. It's an unfortunate loss, but I think that's what you have to consider. What's the best alternative now to tell the story about Newark in this context?
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I think that, okay, two more comments, and then we're going to move to call a vote. Okay, Mr. Zhang, you want to go again?
Now, let me go, please.
Okay, Ms. Epps.
Okay, because I'm the person who couldn't get in for a while here. I've listened very patiently this evening, along with some of the others. I've been accused of not being concerned about the Newark community. And actually, I have to abstain from voting. But my comments were based on my concern for the community more than anything else, more than the environmental issue, more than anything else. That was my concern. And that primarily is for the amount of open space available, especially for the children that are here. I raised my children on James Street, as everyone knows, and probably am almost one of, if not the longer residents there, although I've not been there for a few years. I think I probably was there longer than anyone else that's currently living there. NJPAC has been more than an art center. It served as more than an art center, as it should have. I am more concerned about the spirit of the neighborhood, about what's going to happen to the children who live here. We want to create in them future adult citizens of the city. And what we do now is going to have an impact on the way they view and the way they feel about the city. Historic buildings are wonderful. That's my trade. That's all this history and cultural stuff is what I do for a living. But within all that, we cannot forget the impact upon the people who actually live here, how they're going to view their neighborhood, how they're going to use their neighborhood, what we provide for them in their neighborhood. And that was one point that was key in the remarks that I made. We've got families that are growing up here. What are we providing for those families who can afford to and who cannot afford to attend events at the Performing Arts Center? I almost see this as an opportunity to gift the children of Newark. It may sound hokey, but that's really the way I feel, especially since I raised my two sons here and know what little availability there was for free and open rec and safe recreation for them. So that was one of my main points, which I think got skipped over as we were talking through all this. I'm done.
Thank you.
This-
Commissioner
yeah.
Epps.
Commissioner Fang, I wanted to thank everyone for their comments and for their patience. I appreciate all of it, really. I'll just add is growing up in Newark, I've seen so many buildings, particularly buildings owned by institutions that were demolished because those institutions couldn't find a use for those buildings. I think about the buildings on James Street Commons Historic Districts, things like townhouses, small buildings, buildings from 100 years ago or 80 years ago that have a small footprint. Even things like the St. Michael's Deli on the corner of James Street and MLK. And so many of these buildings are buildings that the institution can't find for use for it, but the community can if those buildings go on the market. I think of so many qualified local developers who want to build artist lofts, group developers like Hanini Group or other groups, and local organizations that need school space, that want art space or local artist groups. NJPAC is a big organization. They might be thinking about bigger footprints, bigger buildings that have 100 employees and not buildings that have 10 or 12 employees. But as you all know, Newark has a shortage of affordable housing, has a shortage of artist housing. And this building, it could have been continued to have been a school for the foreseeable future, even with the mitigating conditions of non-friable asbestos in the walls. And I could have seen this building continuing to be an arts education facility in the future. And I could see that as the best possible way to remember this history. I think I've said all that I possibly can say about this application. So I'll just say that I've sat in on other Landmarks Commission meetings in other townships, such as New York City, such as Brooklyn, or I've researched extensively historic preservation. My master's degree in that. I've sat in different landmarks commissions, and based on my assessment, I don't think I would ever see other landmarks commissions approving this, but I could see this being approved in Newark because I think that Newark historically has had a worse track record of historic preservation than many other cities in the American Northeast. Newark is the nation's third oldest city, but walking around downtown Newark, it many cases
So,
does not look.
so I see that he's freezing.
Design, maybe you could repeat the last.
Repeat the last piece, Commissioner Zhang, because I can't hear you now.
He's frozen.
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yes, I can. Can you put then
Thank
the
you.
last 30 seconds?
Okay. Yes, I've sat in on Landmarks Commission meetings in Brooklyn, in New York City, in Philadelphia, and Hoboken. I wouldn't be able to see, based on my assessment as historic preservationist, I wouldn't be able to see those commissions approving this kind of an application based on the evidence presented. But I could see this commission approving it because this commission, I think, or newer to a lower standard than other cities in the Northeast. Newark is the nation's third oldest city, but walking around downtown Newark, it really doesn't look like that. And I think that's a legacy historically of deeply failing to preserve our neighborhood fabric. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zhang. We appreciate your comments and your concerns.
Thank you, Mr.
Madam Secretary, we need to call a vote. And
I would like to call a vote.
Okay, Commissioner Forsythe.
This is Commissioner Forsythe, and I'll call a vote. I live in the downtown area, and I see the moribund historical buildings that are sitting there forever and ever. And I think that we should follow our hearts. I'm going to follow my heart and propose that we demolish the building, that we keep with the caveat of keeping the significant doorway and create a park.
Okay, we have a motion for H 25171. Can I get a second? Get someone to second the motion?
I'll second it, Gross Clause.
Madam Secretary, can we have a roll call?
Motion made by Commissioner Forsyth, seconded by Commissioner Grosclaws. Commissioner Combs Hollis.
Thank you. I guess I should just vote yes or no, but I have to say that I want to thank the applicant and I want to thank the community for coming out. And I want to appreciate too the passion of my fellow commissioners on this application. I cannot ignore the fact that there is identified asbestos in this building and the significant health risks that it lends to our community. And I am going to vote in support of the motion. So yes.
Commissioner John Paul.
Hi, I have to recuse myself from this, but I appreciate the inclusion in the dialogue and all the comments here from both the commission and the community tonight.
Commissioner Roger Smith.
I will also be recusing myself, so I abstain.
Goodness.
Commissioner Caldwell Epps.
I have to abstain.
Commissioner O'Toole. Commissioner O'Toole.
Yes, I'm gonna say yes.
Commissioner Zhang.
I vote no.
Commissioner Nance.
I vote no.
Commissioner Grosclaws.
Yes.
Commissioner Forsyth.
Yes.
Chair Smith.
Yes.
Motion carry, 5 in favor, 2 not voting, and 3 abstentions. So the application has been approved because there are 5 votes yes.
Thank you. We truly appreciate your time and all your comments, and we will use those comments in the design of the park and be back to you shortly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smith, may I say a word?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just want to thank the commissioners and I want to thank the community for this conversation. I think all of us learned a lot from it. And I've been in Newark for 15 years. Now, that's not nearly as long as a lot of people on this call for sure. But I love this city and I love the opportunity that the Arts Center has to advance community in so many different ways. And I believe the work that we will do in maintaining the facade of 24 Rector, creating a really useful and vibrant and beautiful urban park space with your engagement in that process and the opportunity to tell the story of the Black Power Conference, not only in the park space, but also through the multi-day conference that Junius will be organizing in the fall of 27. All of this will advance the correct telling of this really significant history. So thank you very, very much for all of your time and all of your attention and your patience with this process. We are extremely grateful, so much appreciated.
Thank you.
Commissioner Zhang, well, it's 5 votes. I know a lot of members of the public are disappointed. I know that this has been the most highly attended commission meeting so far, and I believe that this approval sets the pace for the future of Newark, and I really don't think that's a good thing. So, yeah.
And I want to say with that I am confident that this applicant will do what they need to do. I know that they love the city, they're anchoring the city, and I'm confident that the work that they do, that they will continue to do that, and the story will be told.
This is Chair Commissioner Smith. I dovetail on that, and I will definitely. I believe that they will definitely do what they said they're going to do, and we'll keep their feet to the fire to make sure that they execute every single thing that they said they're going to do. Thank you.
Commissioner Nance, I look forward to seeing Sarah's design in the near future. Thank you so much.
Okay, good night.
Good night. Well, it's not good night for us, but now I need if everyone is out, I need a bathroom break because this next application, if you don't know, is going to could be long also. So I just need 3 minutes. Are we good? Okay.
Let me see if that person is still there. Okay.
Is that person still there?
I think they might have dropped off. And also, I wanted to apologize. For some reason, my camera went black and I cannot turn it back on. So, apologies.
But he said he's here.
Oh, good.
Yeah, Pierre
Okay,
S.
yes, so
here.
we can take
Okay,
let's take a 10 minutes break. 5. Okay, Chair, we're gonna take a 5 minutes break.
Five.